Hello and welcome to episode 54 of The Imperial Truth. I'm Greg. With me is Neil.
Hello, Greg.
Hello, Neil. And we'll be going through the usual kind of stuff today, but before we get into anything else, let's talk Element Games.
Indeed. Let's talk Element Games.
So, the place to go for all your plastic goodies and all your tools goodies and your paint goodies and everything else, and particularly for the Horus Heresy Burning of Prospero box, which they are selling for... I did get it up. Bear with me a second.
And look stuff up on internet.
£76. So that's 20% off. And if you just add an extra £4 or so onto that, you're going to get free shipping, and it will probably be with you on the Saturday. This is going to release after the Saturday release, but it will be with you in no time at all. Bargain. I saw some other people offering. It's quite funny what marketing, I suppose, is all it is. Oh yeah, get it at this site at this much, but only if you come in and pick it up. That's useful if you live around the corner from it. Yeah, and then their normal price was the £76 was 20% off, but free postage was higher. And also as well, I was sitting there thinking, with some of these people who do try and undercut, there was a big thing a few years ago with a company that basically tried to undercut everyone too much, and they grew and everyone thought they were doing really well, where actually they were harming themselves. So, I think with the money that GW charged them, any more than 20%, you're going to make money. So actually, I don't mind paying 20%, less rather than 25%.
It's got to be viable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because they could give you money to a company if they then fold because they couldn't actually fulfil all their orders.
No, but I don't want to give my money to a company that would do that anyway. I want a company, any company I use, I want them to keep going, because you build up not necessarily a relationship, but you build up a trust and everything else. And Element do it right, and yeah, cool. That's why I'm prepared to pay their price, as maybe one person's got it a couple of quid cheaper.
And not to mention that you can get your crystals and everything else that...
Yeah, again, some places do similar things, but I'd say you might find it cheaper online, but it's not going to be a huge amount cheaper anywhere. I think, £76 is a pretty good price.
And don't forget to go through the banner if you're going to shop at Element.
Absolutely, go through the banner, click on theimperialtruth.com, hit the banner, do that. You can use your crystals for other people, then you're still supporting the show, and you're being a hero.
Indeed.
That's exactly what you are when you do that. Doing loads of stuff, doing brilliant. They're holding lots of events up at Northwest Gaming Centre as well. I think that's still what they're calling it. And they've got a Facebook group. You can see lots of stuff going on, always kind of talking about events they've got on. Sometimes they're free as well, which is quite cool. So you can pop along. I think they've got they had a Kill Team demo weekend. So people could just go along and play Kill Team, 40k naturally, but just to get a handle on it, and that was all free, which is pretty cool.
Always good.
Yeah, Element are doing things right, and also another bloke who's doing things right is Mr. Miles.
Yes, Lil Legend Studios for all your commission painting needs, and it was quite funny this week because I had someone contact me on Instagram and said, "Oh, can you give me a price for?" and listed off his whole army of models, and said, I think he said, "Oh, I'm a bit busy at the moment. Can you give me a price for commission painting all of these things?" So I just pretty much forwarded it to Miles and said, "If you want to get in contact with him, go ahead."
Yeah.
I was just like, that's not what I do.
No, they couldn't afford you, could they?
Well, yeah, it would take, yes, if you want me to paint an army, you're going to wait, one, at a very long time, and two, pay a lot of money.
I'm the same, but for very different reasons. But Miles is your man, and he's been getting around a bit recently as well.
He has. He put some pictures up. I don't know if you saw them, but he put up some pictures of his workstation, and he had 4 Russ models on it.
Yeah, I did.
And now, considering that Russ wasn't actually released at this point, I was like, how did you get 4 Russ models?
He had a man at the European Day, I believe, because I was considering looking at getting one that way, but decided to wait. He's working away. I saw that photo of his workstation, and I want his light.
I saw a few people asking a question about what his light was.
Yeah,
we might have to ask him.
Well, he told me a price, so it might wait a couple of months because these are expensive months. But I think he spent about 150 quid on it.
Oh, okay.
You know, if it's the decent tool, because I was looking at getting one of those arches, but then I'm like, problem with the arches, you've got to have the space either side to do it and whatever. That lamp was big enough that it worked the same way and looked more manoeuvrable, easier to take places and things like that.
Yeah.
So, and set up places. So I'm considering, maybe putting some money away and taking the plunge on that, because I must admit I fitted literally above where I paint. I've got the house lights, and I fitted a new bulb in there today, and I bought a brighter one than I normally do. And even just doing that is good, but obviously because they're normal house lights, they're a bit yellowish. So
they will throw your paint colours off, definitely.
Yeah, I still use a light whilst having those lights on. They help banish the shadows, but as you say, they change the colour of what you're painting, so you still need a light with them. But I'm going to look at doing that because space is limited.
It's a shame, really, because lights aren't the exciting stuff to spend your money on, are they? Really, that's the problem.
Oh no, absolutely no. Yeah, well, none of this stuff is it? Apart from all you want to buy is toys. You never want to buy terrain, apart from if you're one of those like 1 in 10 gamers who loves terrain.
Yeah.
You don't want to buy terrain. You don't want to buy tables. You don't want to buy you just want to buy more toys. That's all you ever want to buy. But frankly, actually, even now, looking at getting Prospero, and I'm like, when am I going to paint them?
Yes, yeah.
It's horrible, but I'm actually working through stuff slowly but surely, getting through stuff. So yes, Lil Legend Studios, smashing it out, doing wonderful stuff, and I think he's even got more plans in the offing. So we'll keep up with him. We'll have to get him back on the show at some point and have a little chat.
Definitely.
Not too much about painting though.
Oh.
Excellent. So are you painting today?
I am painting today. I've been cracking on with my Leviathan Dreadnought, and it's coming on very well, and I'm very happy with it. Yeah,
I saw the pictures go. It's looking good.
It was weird because I haven't put any pictures up to Instagram for quite a while, mainly because I've been moved out of my actual house. I haven't got my light tent and all my photography gear. So I thought, I won't bother putting pictures up. But I got to a stage where I thought, if I don't start taking pictures of this Leviathan Dreadnought, like stage by stage, it will just be done. So it'll just be the one picture I put up. So I thought, no, I'll try and take a couple of shots. And it wasn't too bad, but I can definitely notice the difference of not having my light tent and all my lights and my camera and what I normally have set up to take a photo with. It was difficult to get rid of the shadows and get everything in focus, but I think it came out all right.
Yeah, no, it's looking pretty good. Yeah, it's quite weird because it was when you tweeted it, you didn't tweet the show in.
No, I tweeted you in, didn't I?
Yeah, which was a very different thing. You haven't really done that before either. And I was like, there's like 98 likes on this in a day. It's like my painting doesn't get that many likes. I think it was being shared around different circles. But there we go. Such is life. Such is life. I've been doing bases. I got my choo-choo train from from Forge World, and unfortunately it was miscast. So I'm taking that one back when I go out for the weekend. And I managed to steal one off Joe at the club, which is already made. And he wasn't going to paint it in any time soon. So I was like, awesome, can I have that? I need to paint it by the 29th. So it's mainly red now, which is good. It's an amazing tank, really, because actually, much like the Krios, the sides of it, there's the engine bits, and then there's a lot of flat areas. But you don't think there are when you look at it. It's not like when you look at a Rhino. You think that's one big solid block. It's got stuff going on, but it's mainly engine and then, like, the block colour. So
I'm trying to picture it because I haven't got a picture in front of me, but is it a bit like the ones where you got the tracks sort of go over and they sort of hide detail underneath them?
Yeah.
A bit like
and they got the windows, as it were, to see into the engine. Yeah. So, and the way I paint them is I don't go too much detail on them. It's like, silver, wash, pick out a few bits, away you go. So it makes it a lot easier.
Definitely.
And, so that's coming along. So I can.
Did you airbrush any of it, or?
No. I started this army before I got the airbrush, so
you carried on with that same method just to keep it consistent.
Yeah, which means that the 2 coats of corn red, 2 thin coats, as Duncan would say, work well enough. Obviously, they're not going to be as smooth as having the airbrush, but it does seem to work well enough. So, yeah. I
must admit, I was looking at another person's Leviathan Dreadnought that they'd airbrushed on Instagram, and I looked at it and went, wow, because the amount of time it took me to blend parts of the Leviathan, then I looked at it and went, yeah, that's probably a better blend, and I bet that took him all of 5 seconds to do with an airbrush.
Yeah, and then
so you look at it, you think, yeah, some things with an airbrush are just a bit of a no-brainer. I think anything larger than an infantryman, you've got to start thinking about an airbrush, haven't you?
Yeah, there was a half hour of cleaning in that 5 minutes of painting.
Yeah, that's true. But still, I think it took me more than 35 minutes to do my blend.
Yeah, I haven't got to the point yet where I can paint with my airbrush, as it were. I'm still very much filling in block colours. So, as I say, at some point I'm going to get to a position where I can try and play with that. But with what I'm doing with the Space Wolves, I'm not too sure that's going to be particularly soon either, because of the nature of what I've done there. So, yeah, one day we keep talking at the club, and I might have said this before, about having an evening where Dan, we sit around with Dan, who's used the airbrush more than anyone else and can paint with it, as it were. The rest of us sit around with our airbrushes and have a little airbrushing session together. But
it's probably not a bad idea, actually, because with airbrushing, I think you can all learn different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I've stated before, my aim is not necessarily to become a Golden Demon painter, but to get to a point where I can paint as well as I can, or maybe a little bit better, but a lot quicker. So, hoping that the airbrush might be that solution. But as I say, at the moment, it's just spraying whole sections one colour. Even playing with the tape was still haven't done that much.
That's the one thing that drives me mad with an airbrush, is having to tape off loads of areas. It's just like, you think that, an airbrush will save you time, then when you spend like an hour taping up a piece of a model, you think, how much time is this actually going to save me?
Yeah, and that's another thing where I'm not wholly sure I want to be doing it, but if you can paint 3/4 of the model, with your first coat from an airbrush when it's got no other paint on it, then that's saving you time, so that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Before we go into the news and stuff, we have a couple of things to talk about. First, the Voltarax, the flying precursor to the Blight drone. We were talking last week about how, how it's maybe not as bad as people were saying it is. Well, we were talking about it in terms of flyer rules. Just a complete oversight on my part. I led that conversation. And it's a flying monstrous creature, which follows very different rules. So it's things about bringing it down and stuff, and I forgot to check in my book. So, just to clarify that part of that conversation is now useless.
Please delete that from your brains.
Yeah, at the end of the day, now you're going to have to find a way to ground them. So, if they're hit, they have to take a grounding check and all that jazz. You're going to have to find the most efficient way to do that if they become a thing, as it were. And it's quite interesting. I saw someone talking about what is the meta. They wanted to go to a heresy event, maybe the one in January, the doubles, and they were like, what is the current meta? And it's like, well, I'm surprised actually no one kind of took offence to that term, because of the way a lot of the people in the Horus Heresy kind of hobby view competitive gaming. But I must admit, I sat there and thought, well, meta's only relevant to a single group or a single play area or tournament event, what have you. It's very dependent on the rules that you're playing to and the people who are playing. In say in Tunbridge Wells, where we are, it might be Leviathan Dreadnoughts, and somewhere else it might be something else, because they already take for fun the stuff that kills Leviathan Dreadnoughts. So actually, it's an infantry-based thing. So, I think it's a case of if you start to see a lot of Voltarax appear, then you might change your stuff. I can't see that happening at the club, because none of the players I play will look at it and go, "That's amazing, I want 6."
Yeah.
We'll go, they're amazing, I'll get a couple of them. which is a very different thing.
Yeah, and also, I suppose because it's Mechanicum as well, you know, if you've got a club and there's maybe one Mechanicum player, how much is that going to affect you? Versus if you've got a club and there's 5 or 6 Mechanicum players, you could suddenly start moaning that, oh yeah, everyone takes them and it's a nightmare. And
yeah,
it's very, very dependent on who you're playing and the club, the type of people you're playing.
Yeah, I think the fact it's Mechanicum is part of the issue as well. Seems to be there was another conversation on Facebook which was basically, are we seeing a more competitive heresy than we did a few years ago? And citing that maybe we're getting more 40k players in. My view on that is, well, I saw many of these lists, you know, back 2-3 years ago. In fact, the first event I ran, yes, it was a more tournament-based event, but there were a few lists there, but a lot of them were harder. Yeah, this year's event didn't have any of the types of lists that we saw the year before, in terms of looking at winning the scenarios as almost a primary.
Yeah.
How much of that is down to the pack and the people who came and buying into that, and how much of that is, I wanted to bring cool toys, is hard to tell without talking to everyone. But I've certainly felt that actually, you look back and I remember people talking about, you know, when Spartans were the thing, people were like, yeah, I'm going to bring 2. And it's like, well, that is essentially what you're talking about in being competitive. You know, but that's not necessarily a bad thing as well, because there are many different ways to enjoy this hobby. You might read the books and just want to recreate what's in the books no matter what.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a negative if you're not willing to step up your game when 8 of your friends do, because they don't always want to be coming down to your level to play.
Yes.
And that's exactly the same as the bloke who only takes the ultra competitive stuff as well. You know, we've talked before about it's a 2-player game, it's meeting in the middle and all that jazz. And not every time, and sometimes, you know, going one way or the other. But no one's to say that's the wrong way to play the game. That's just the way they want to play the game. You know, the problem you get is if no one else wants to play the game you want to play, then you might have to change your opinion on what you're doing, and or find another group. But I think it's always been there, and I think the Mechanicum is the list that you head to get around it. It's got more flexibility. You've got extremely tough things. The Castellax have always been hard.
Yeah.
All right.
Since day one, I remember even when the lists came out in the books and they were very limited, like you only had the Thalax and the Castellax, people moaning like hell how hard the Castellax were to kill.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, you could say it's got easier to kill them because you've got, you know, the standard tactical squad, and that kind of thing hasn't really changed. It's there. It still does what it does years ago, but actually there are a lot more options around it now to deal with things like Castellax. So you could say that Astartes armies have got many more options now to deal with them than they did before. So you could say they were hard, even though they've gone up to 110 points and whatever. You could say they were harder back then than they are now. The fact is, you've got the Castellax, you've got people moan about the Thanatar, which is a different issue. I think that's people who don't play against it probably. But you've got things like Scoria himself. When you're talking about special characters, there aren't many better than him. You're talking about all the funny rules, all the different weapons options, and some of it's perception as well. But you add these guys into a Mechanicum army, and there is potential then to take something that's, where we use the term meta, not of the norm, shall we say? If you want to build an all-comers list, Mechanicum are almost by definition not in that all-comers category. So I think they got so much flexibility that you never know what you're going to face with them. So you can't really say, oh well, I know they're going to have this, this, and this. So someone could write, if someone had a large amount, a large army where they bought most of the units from Forge World, they could write a different list every time and just completely keep you on your toes, and you wouldn't know which way to go. Yeah, and also as well, say I've got £50 or I've got £30 a month to spend on toys, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, I don't want to be left behind. I don't want to bring a knife to a gunfight, but I don't want to, bring a bazooka either. Okay, I'll get some stuff, and I'll have some stuff that's designed to kill Marines, and I'll have some stuff that's designed to kill Terminators. All right, that gives me a bit of an opportunity all round. Now I need to kill some vehicles. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, got my nice little units all laid out. And then the bloke you're fighting against doesn't bring any power armor, any Terminators,
Yeah.
Again, it's easy to aim for the majority of what you're fighting. So they slip around it, outside it. And I think Solar Auxilia have a little bit of potential to do that as well. I think the militia list struggles to do that, although the huge amount of bodies they can put down is another example of, people are used to trying to kill 10 and 20 man squads, like 5 or 6 of them. Whereas you put 300 men on the board, they just don't have enough shots.
Yeah, I experienced that firsthand when I played at the event. You suddenly got these big units of 20 men and there's 3 or 4 of them in front of you. And it's a case of, well, how can I kill that many many men quick enough? You look at the amount of shots you can put out and the amount you'll probably kill in combat, and you think, I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to get so bogged down, I now need to, and they literally can herd you around the board. You think, well, I'm not going over there. See how many men are over there? I can't kill that many men. And then you end up focusing on other areas. They completely can hurt you with numbers.
Yeah, and Willard, at the event we mentioned it beforehand, he bought his Black Shields all on foot because he assumed, fairly rightly, that there was going to be a lot of big guns out there, a lot of las cannons, a lot of multi-melters, things like that, which kill a Marine, not a huge amount better than a bolter at the end of the day. I mean, it's obviously more likely, but when you're in cover, things like that, the las cannon's not doing a huge amount more than a bolter is.
Yes.
So, he played that to an extent. He also wants to build a Black Shields force. He didn't do it just to come to the event with it. He had an idea for Black Shields and then ran with that and saw where it could go. Because it would be, it is easy to make an army and go, I want it to fit the fluff. And you do the fluff and the fluff doesn't quite work in game. And then you just get a bit despondent with it and put them down and walk away. So, the Voltrax, what you're going to want to do is ground them. Once you ground them, I think, they can fly off again. The thing with monstrous creatures was a lot of them are in 40k, like the demon princes and things like that. They wanted to get in combat, so they want to drop out of that flying mode. Whereas these guys probably want to stay in the flying mode and just shoot you.
Yeah.
They're powerful, but I still think there are a lot of points.
I always hold judgment until I actually play some.
Yeah, and that's it. And, I'm not saying there are too many points. I'm saying there are a lot of points. And I
do think my Night Lords list would love it, because I've got so many flyers in my Night Lords list. If you're flying, it's probably not going to give you much benefit.
No, and as we said, there are those things. And maybe it is a case of we get more anti-air guns in lists if they do become really popular. But I've yet to see, anyone really many people really talking about buying shed loads of them, because I'm sure that would get expensive as well.
Yes.
But groovy. Cool. So that's that. And finally, for this little section, I've got a message from Pete on the Southampton Heresy guys, good bunch down there, and about a place called D6 Gaming. Essentially, they're setting up a gaming club in Southampton. I'm told partly inspired by their trip to Firestorm and the event. And it's, let me again, man, look stuff up. I had this all ready and then I pressed the wrong button. It's set nights of gaming is the idea. So it's a gaming place with looking at set nights of gaming. They're on Facebook, D6 Gaming. It's based in Southampton. And the idea is to have nights for mixed gaming, but nights, so a 40k night, a 30k night, things like that.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not exactly sure because their plans were still being, finalised, as it were. So I'm sure they're going to have more details up once, once it's all certain, but they've got a venue which they're pretty sure they're going to get, and room to possibly expand it. Ideas to hold events down there. And Southampton's, it's not too hard to get to if you live in the south half of England. If you're too far west, it might be, but for everyone else, it's not a major journey. So that could be quite cool.
So if you're in the area, I suppose it's worth.
Yeah, get on Facebook, look up D6. Let me just double check exactly what it is again. You know these things. You know what they're like. I'll be tempted to pop down there. It's a bit of a drive for me. I'd have to make a specific journey to get down for it. But if they hold events down there, that'll be good. I'll pop down to some of them. And where are we? It is. I can't find it. Right, let me pause. So yeah, if you can jump on Facebook and look for D-6, and that's the word 6, not the number. So D-6 Games to get their proper title, and they're looking at all kinds of stuff, getting a bit of feedback, and hopefully that'll be up and running, and that'll be pretty cool. Always good when there's more Heresy being played. Yeah, and this is not just Heresy either. As I say, it's lots of other games as well, and that's something that I think is kind of undervalued, is how gaming of non-Heresy affects Heresy. So any game system is boosted by people playing miniature gaming. Oh yeah, completely. So I think that's something that every system has its joke that the Warhammer players used to call 40k players, having safety bases and all that. And it's all tongue in cheek, except for a small portion of it where they mean it, bless them. But actually, yeah, the more people you have playing 40k, the healthier 30k gets, and vice versa, and other game systems and everything else. So, boost gaming as a whole. I do think that people undervalue how they interconnect, which is really cool. So, just to make sure I get it right one more time, it's D-6 Games on Facebook. Check them out. Brilliant. We'll take a little break, come back and chat some news. Okie dokie do. Into the news. Anything happened recently, Neil?
No, nothing I can think of.
Yeah, classic joke. Right, we'll start with the Burning of Prospero. So it's released. We were hoping to have a copy from GW, which hasn't turned up for various reasons. Post probably. Good old British Royal Mail. The first time it's failed me from GW is this kind of thing. So what we're going to do is once we get the box, we'll have an in-depth look at what's going on in that. But we can look at the toys for now. Managed to race up to the local GW and have a look as they were putting it together. And, well, I mean, we've seen all the information, haven't we? It's been out there a long time now. But
yes, and I heard that they pulled the whole thing forward because of those leaks.
Really?
Yeah, I heard that it was actually due to be coming out roughly after Blood Bowl. Sort of like mid-November, but with the leaks, they sort of dragged it forward.
With what leaks? Are you talking about the leaks early in the year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, apparently so. But that's all I've heard.
Yeah, more rumour.
More rumour, yeah, rumour to rumours.
Pile it on. Okay. Yeah, I could see them wanting, maybe, assuming that rumour has a kernel of truth to it, maybe the delay in the Inferno book as well means that it doesn't have to be released at the same time.
Yeah.
Because maybe it would have been cool to have that all drop on the same weekend, wouldn't it?
Very much so.
So yeah, maybe with that being delayed, putting this forward doesn't matter quite so much. But whether that's true or not, who knows? We don't know for sure. So, Burning of Prospero, the tale of the taking of Tisca City. We've had the GW kind of teaser videos. They also put up a video with Phil Kelly and Simon, I can't remember his surname, talking about the kind of the rules, the kind of what they were trying to do, how the rules work into that, and a brief talk through the game. I know I met Simon when he was working at Eastbourne Games Workshop just as a staffer. I think he was one of 2 or 3 guys from Eastbourne who all went up to head office in the same kind of 6-month period or so, maybe a little bit longer, and Dominic worked up there as well. And Simon was a massive Space Wolf fan, always has been, and has gone through various haircuts you can see in White Dwarf. And I knew he'd got into kind of the rules team, so it's really cool to see like progression through that, which is quite cool. But they talk through what's going on in the box, why we need all those different dice, which has caused all kinds of speculation, which is always fun as well. But the models, I mean, now we get the good look at them. What do you think?
I'm very impressed with the models, and you know, once I've got my own set and I've built them, I'll probably love them even more. But I do think that I would have loved to have seen the Custos done by Forge World.
Who says they won't be?
Well, yeah, no, they may still be. But I feel as though, just knowing how Forge World produce things, I mean, if they do, they'd be fantastic. But I think the models are absolutely jaw-dropping.
Cool. So the basic Marines, look really good.
Yeah, and they're very much on the basis of what you want them to look like. Because they look, I mean, if you take a shot of one of those and just stuck it up against a resin Marine painted in the same standard, I think you might struggle to have said, oh, which one was the plastic.
I think 90% of people would. The odd person might be able to put them out, but yeah, they do look fantastic. I think there are some slightly different cuts on them to fit in, but I think they look great. Frankly, we got less options with this one, so we have got on the sprue you've got one melter gun, one plasma gun, one heavy bolter, that kind of stuff. So it's less. There's less variety than you got, or quantity of variety than you got in Betrayal at Calth. So it's a bit harder to make your cheap heavy weapons teams.
Yes, there was a lot of horse trading going on, wasn't there? If someone wanted missile launchers, it was very much I'll swap you my heavy bolters for missile launchers and vice versa. Yeah,
absolutely, and that will go on in this set, but not in the same way. Fantastic. It's just quality again. I really do think it is. On from that, we'll do the characters. So we saw Araman a long time ago now.
Yes, and there was speculation whether or not he was from this box, but obviously that's now. Yeah, we know that that's the case.
And I'm still surprised it is Araman. I didn't think it would be.
Neither did I, because I thought when they put name characters in like that, they're very much putting a marker in the ground, aren't they?
We'd only seen one example, so we hadn't seen a kind of a rule to say it was going to be that way. Again, does it mean that that Forge World won't do Araman? Not necessarily. This is Araman at Prospero. There's no reason why Forge World can't do Araman later in the Heresy. I think having had the model in my hands is fantastic.
It's a great pose. I love the pose.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I like it a lot. I'd say, just fantastic model again. It's, I suppose it doesn't matter because with a resin character piece like this, you're going to get it in pieces and not be able to convert it easily either. So that doesn't really matter. Well, the plastic one's the same, for Aram specifically. But it's a cool sorcerer. He really is.
Yes, definitely.
Really is. Geiger Fellhand?
Yes, sculpted by Darren Latham, this one.
Yeah, I saw him putting that up, and I can almost see that now. Now he said it.
Yeah, it's funny, because you look at it and you suddenly start seeing little cues, don't you, from certain styles.
Yeah. Seen a complaint that he's too 40k wolfy. Don't necessarily. I mean, he's got the wolf skull on his chest and the wolf skull totem, but I think that's a link to the 40k wolves. I think that's kind of designed that way. The one thing about his backpack is the kind of chain and the wolf pelts are sculpted against the backpack. So if you don't,
so then they're not an optional extra.
No, but what you can do is just pick up the old Space Wolf backpack and put it on, because I don't think it's very different.
And knowing how they sculpt these with a library of shapes, and they more than likely it's just taken from that set anyway.
Yeah, so you can just literally just pop that one on. I've probably got, 4 or 5 of those sitting around, so I will certainly look at that as an option, just because I'm not, I don't mind that totem sitting on top, but I'm not that bothered by it, so I might just take that off, keep it a bit cleaner. But yeah, it's a great model. Kind of sort of had confirmation that it's, Gygor is the guy that Bjorn got his hand from. Bjorn took over from this guy. Right. So yes, Bjorn he was bare at this point still. He didn't have a major part to play in terms of the battle for Tiska City. He wasn't, although Lehman knew of him and had an eye on him, he wasn't as far along that path that Russ would, consider him important, as it were. So whether that's the reason they've gone with Geiger here, or whether, conspiracy theory that Forge World had already started working on a Bjorn, and so they decided not to do Bjorn in plastic.
Could well be.
If Black Library had anything to do with it, it's probably because Bjorn wasn't there. In the same role.
He wasn't there.
Yeah, he wasn't in this role there. So
that'd be a Laurie Golding classic, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and like that. Oh, that wolf claw looks just like Bjorn. Well, yeah, that's because it was given to Bjorn, kind of thing. No, I like it. I think it's a really cool model. And you have again the option there, that head. Although I think it's going to have one of those flat bases rather than the circular ones of the old school. Very easy to put a different head on there if you want.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing, is head swaps and weapon changes are usually your main conversion cues, aren't they, to get stuff up.
For a character. And what that then means is you've potentially got another Space Wolf character. These could be sold anyway. 40k player might want these characters' models because it's very Wolf. Rather, we've seen 2 characters here who are very definitely of their legion.
Yes.
Even if it wasn't Araman, he's a Thousand Sun sorcerer. So these 2 guys, if you don't collect Thousand Sons or Space Wolves, the chances are you're going to want to sell it on. For people who collect multiple boxes, they're only going to want 1 maximum anyway, but 40k players might be interested in these. So it's a very, very good option moving forwards to sell them on. Now, I like them in general. I think they're very, very good.
I like the running pose. I like running poses on Marines.
Yeah, it is good. The age-old problem of the foot that's bent in half.
Yes.
Which we've mentioned before, which ever since Rachel pointed that out, I'm like, oh yeah, that's wrong. But no, it's cool. It's cool. And then we got the Agents of the Imperium. So the Sisters of Silence.
See, for me, these were the biggest parts of this box. The Sisters and the Custodes.
These are fantastic. So we've got a slightly more true scale than GW normally do for 40k.
Yes, which, I mean, you've got to give them kudos for that, haven't you? The fact that they have upped the scale.
Yeah. So, their hands are dainty. As in, they're probably still a bit big, but you don't notice it. I must admit, I picked it up and went, oh yeah, no, those hands aren't big fist hands. They're very cool models. They are.
I do like the fact that they look so like the artwork that we've seen before as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's not like a massive departure from what we all imagine they would look like from looking at all the artwork.
Yeah, you're right. They've got, and they you can build 3 squads out of them. In 40k, they got 3 squads, which are basically bolt guns, combat weapons, and whatever. So, yeah, they've got options which suggest that you're going to get multiple different units in 30k as well. Be interested to see how many. The armor's baroque. It's awesome. If you're playing fantasy and you want something a bit different in your Age of Sigmar.
Dark Elves, I heard people talking about.
Dark Elves, Free Peoples. Yeah, there's lots of things you could use these girls for. Much like when the Dark Eldar came out, there were the Incubi, and that was almost nothing technical on them. If you painted the armour up to be plate armour, it would work.
Yes.
And these girls are the same. So yeah, you could use them for other systems really easily. You want a female Van Saar gang for Necromunda. When boom, you've got these girls they're just fantastic. They're really good. And I think they're going to be the big thing out of the box that people are wanting.
Well, I know I've already seen some people saying that once things get released more in their own boxes, doing whole armies of Custodes or Sisters of Silence, and I think that's going to be a viable option now, isn't it, for people?
Yeah, I mean, Forge World said that probably not going to be a whole army in themselves, but there's no reason why you can't organise it with your mate and do that. Absolutely no reason at all. Break the rules a little bit. It's your game. Yeah, they are fantastic. Such a cool sprue as well. And then finally, now there's conversations about the correct way to pronounce it. So Custodes or Custodes, whichever is your fancy. Yeah, these guys are huge.
Yes.
It's like each part is only a little bit bigger than a Space Marine, but it builds up to create this huge thing. And they've got the options for the swords with the bolt pistols in, and the Guardian Spears as well. And the Guardian Spears themselves look amazing. So good. And also the boarding shields, which are fantastic. Although that little gem bit in the middle is its own separate piece.
Is it really?
Yeah, there's like 5 just very small circular bits numbered on the sprue, and I was like, oh Lord, make sure you're doing that over something where you catch it and it doesn't fall on your grey carpet. Yeah, these guys are fantastic. I really like their backpacks actually on the 360 on the website.
What's nice is it doesn't look like normal types of armour that we've seen before.
No, it is different. It is very different.
Must admit, there is a slight queue of some of the Sigmarites, like on the legs, but
at the end of the day, the rear. I mean, from the back, the legs look very similar, but then actually they don't look much different from power armour. You're talking about plates, heavy plates of armour, which are curved.
Yes.
How many different ways can you do it? And painted gold, which doesn't help either.
Yeah, painted gold, definitely.
And big shoulder pads.
I'm quite looking forward to someone doing these in non-metallics as well.
Oh, could you imagine?
They're going to look amazing.
Yeah, no, they're pretty awesome. I say they're big. No matter the rules, I'd just be tempted to give them the Guardian Spears because it's so iconic.
I know. I thought exactly the same when I saw the rules. I went, I still want Guardian Spears.
Yeah, and then if you've got maybe some elite choices that you want, or specific choices that you want with a really cool boarding shield, then using those boarding shields, I mean, they'll be huge as well, which would be amazing.
Definitely.
And even the standard's phenomenal. It's so cool. So much in this box. And I was in the G-Dub today, and they'd sold 17 copies on pre-order today. On the Saturday it came out, which is more than they'd sold at the Betrayal at Calth. I think these have got a slightly wider appeal into 40k because it's not just Marines. These are obviously the Astartes and the Sisters of Silence are new forces, so that's exciting. It creates a bigger excitement than you can with just having more cool Marines. But I also think there's Heresy's reached a bigger level of awareness outside of the Heresy now, so I think that's playing into it as well. And
you've got to think, you've already got all the Betrayal at Calth miniatures. You add these in, you've got much more scope for building a viable army all out of plastic.
Oh yeah, big time.
And I think that's a thing now where you can say, well, you could do a Heresy army and you could just walk into a GW store and say, right, I'll have that, and that. Right, there we go. That's my 2,000 point listing.
Yeah, too right. If I was to tell anyone in Tunbridge Wells, how I want to get a load of stuff and I want loads of infantry, I'd say go and buy one Burning of Prospero, one Betrayal at Calth. They've still got a couple on the shelf there.
They're still restocking it, apparently.
Are they?
At the moment, yeah. Yeah, my local manager said to me, they keep restocking me.
Okay.
Well, that's good.
Shall I tell you, I think Laurie confirmed this. But the idea was, and a year ago when it was coming out, and just after it came out, I was up at Warhammer World, and I was talking to someone up there, and in fact I was talking to Laurie. I think it was at Convention Secundus, and the idea was like any board game really. If you're into board games, you'll know that board games run out, and your people are waiting for the next print. They do a print run of however many thousand, 20,000, 50,000 if it's a really big one. And then they sell out. And then if they think it's viable, they'll do another print run. Well, GW have gone, right, we'll do one print run. They quickly did a second print run because they were selling so quick. I think they did maybe a third. But that was always the plan, was to go for however long they did and then wait for them to sell out. That was always the plan. And they even said back then, I remember reading it from a staff member, it's not limited in the terms of a limited edition, but at some point we will stop producing it. And that was never going to be a long-term thing. It was never going to be years down the line. And I think Laurie's confirmed that, once this print run has ended, that's it. They're not doing any more. So they're on their last lot. Now, however many that is, no idea. But, it's a finite amount. And I assume the same will be done with this one as well. Because then
it would make sense. I thought that what they were going to, and this is obviously completely wrong now, that once the new box had come out, they would, you'd see the other one just disappear. It'd be like the case of the new one. They would have a heresy box on the shelf in a GW, but it depends on what one it was.
Yep. Main thing with that is, to recoup their money on those lost boxes, they'd have to take the sprues out and put them in other boxes to then sell as the individuals. So someone's got to do that, so you're paying them money, which will eat out of the money saving that you're making on Betrayal at Calth anyway. So it's just easier to sell the Betrayal at Calths on the shelf. So if you still want one, they're there. Don't know how long they're going to last. I don't think anyone does, because at the end of the day, what will happen is, like, say, I don't know, Brighton will run out of stock and go, oh, actually, I've got a guy here who wants 2 Betrayal at Calths. They'll email in. Okay, that's no worries. Southampton have got a couple. They haven't shifted any for a while. I'll send one of them from there. And whatever. So, that's the way these things go. But you can still get them. I saw a load of people panic bought them because they assumed, it's fair enough. They assumed they were going to go. And that's always a fear. But there's no real benefit to GW to do that. Because actually they're a very different product from, Burning of Prospero in a weird way because of the nature of what else you're getting. But that's the Burning of Prospero. It's
I've got a question for you, Greg, and I know this is a bit man looks up a topic on internet. If you look at the Terminators, the two 1,000-ton painted Terminators, and look at the base, do you think that's broken glass on the base, or some sort of crystal, or maybe some self-abasing?
I'm trying to find the picture you're talking about. Oh yeah, we can see it on Grigor's base as well.
Yeah, and if you rotate the picture as well, it then really sort of...
Yes. Right, that's an interesting one. So yes, that appears to be some form of crystal / glass looking thing. GW haven't for a long time put anything in their photos that they don't sell.
Yes.
Now I'm trying to work out, have they sold these before? Is it part of the basing kit they used to sell?
I don't think so.
So there's potential that we might have a basing kit. There's also potential that they just changed what they're doing for the sake of selling this box game.
Knowing that it's like, the crystal glass at Prospero, maybe they thought, that'd be cool. But I saw it and I suddenly thought to myself, I wonder if that's going to be a basing kit.
Yeah. Tisca was a city that was, Enlightenment, glass, crystal. Not necessarily all of Prospero was the same. Prospero is a huge planet. The difference was, and would have had a lot, don't get me wrong, but Prospero Burns deals with one city because they bombed the rest of it from space, and the only thing saving Tisca was the kinetic shield they put up with their mines. So, full potential to be something or just nothing, Read into it what you will.
Could be completely nothing, but I saw it.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, we didn't even mention the Terminators as well. They're looking amazing. Yes. They're so cool. It's just had a quick...
In fact, I think they look way better than the resin ones. They've got like some nice detail bits, the legs looking better poses, everything.
Yeah. And it's plastic, which is so much better than any other material to work with.
I know.
Which some people are going to hate me for saying, but...
The big thing I saw is, they've got the lightning claws.
Yeah.
And my Iron Hands, I've got the Tartarus Terminators, and I've destroyed the lightning claws. They all got bent in my model case, and they're all bent and curled round. I saw these and went, perfect, right, yeah, that's it. Gonna take them straight off the sprue, they're going straight on my Iron Hands.
Yeah, too right. Yeah, I love
Fix the lightning claws.
They're so cool. So cool. Yes, yeah, very cool. Absolutely smashing it. Yeah, I think that's Burning of Prospero done. The other thing that was available today was the Ultramarine Special Limited Edition model.
Yes.
Which I picked one up in store.
Did you?
I sat there with it and I looked at it and I went, there's a big U on his knee pad. I knew about that one. Okay, cool. That is moulded onto the model. I could file that off. The banner is not useful for me because it's got Ultramarines on it all over the place.
Yep.
Okay. Don't really want to scrape all that off a banner. His one of his van braces has got 4 Roman numerals for 4 on them.
Yes.
Maybe I could cope with that, but actually I want to take that off as well. And his bolt pistol's got a U on it as well.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's too much. If they'd put an alternative banner in there that was plain, I might have picked it up.
The funny thing is, I spoke to my local manager, and he said very much this is again them testing the water for if Forge World is going to be sold through stores. But I looked at it and went, but why have they just done an Ultramarine then, which is going to have a limited appeal?
I heard exactly the opposite, that it wasn't a test to see if they could sell through stores. I heard it was they had a model, they released it. People talking about the fact that they test the new modelers with kind of give them an early piece to see what they can do.
Yep.
And that's maybe why this model has some interesting features and, quite a large section of the Heresy fan base really don't like it, for a number of reasons.
Odd legs. The legs were sort of throwing me off.
I don't think the angle of the photo helps that either. But there was certainly something about it I quite liked. I maybe would have done a head swap, but I kind of like that head. In all his ugliness. Why do Space Marines have to be pretty all the time, Yeah, everyone was moaning about that one that came out with a dodgy face when they were the scars. It's like, well, they do fight lots and lots and lots of wars.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know, to be honest. I think maybe it's a case of they know limited editions sell to a certain extent. It'll be interesting to see how many of these sell, how many of these will remain because of it. First off, it's Ultramarine nature being slightly too Legion specific for me to bother about, as a big fan of the Heresy, and having a model that has issues, should we say. Whether you like it or not, as I say, I don't mind it. I think it's an alright model, but I can understand where these issues are coming from.
Yeah, I'm the same. I have bought one, but only purely for the fact that I do like to have everything.
Yeah, I managed to resist. This is where I was talking about to you about resisting. This was a limit for me, and I had it, and I almost went to the till and pay for it, but I just bought some paint instead. But yeah, that's cool. And the other interesting thing that happened, and it's because of the way we released the show, we've missed the first event of it, but we've got the made-to-order section on Games Workshop's website. So
yes, so you did mention this in a Twitter post, didn't you?
I did, yes. I saw it come up, and I heard that it was limited to a number of days. And I can only... We chatted very briefly about this. Essentially what this is old metal models, and they chose Guard to start with. So the Cadian Kazakins, the old Mordian, where I had a conversation with this online with someone, and they said, why would anyone want the old models? And I'm like, well, you can still get like this and this, but why would they want the old ones? I said, they'll want them. And it was the special weapons and the heavy weapons particularly that they'd stopped doing. So this is, all the Mordian heavy weapons, all the Valhallan heavy weapons, the Talon heavy weapons, even the Astra Militarum like Tank Crew, and where else do we get? Sly Marbo himself, Captain Al Haramin. The Tech Priest Engine Seer was the only one that tempted me, but he's metal. I remembered that and said no. We got Commander Chenkov, some proper classics. Now these were being remade apparently to order in metal. So as I say, that just completely put me off buying any. But I know a number of people who have some of these old armies who were looking to add bits to them. I think this was a test because, maybe no one bought any. But maybe there's a lot of old timers out there who are nostalgic, or as I say, who have half an army somewhere who want to finish them off. And I kind of hope they sold.
I think they did. Personally,
yeah,
I love some of the old models. I must admit, it's weird when you look back on some of them because those old guard ones I remember owning, and I looked at them and go, "Wow, we've really moved on in quality." If nothing else,
there's no doubt these are dated, but that in itself has a bit of charm. I mean, the Kazakins are probably the ones that haven't so much. They're very cool, but the old Mordians and the Talon stuff.
It's the size of the hands on some of these.
Yeah, and the poses. Classic metal models where they're standing with their gun, a 45-degree angle off their hip. But things like Lord Solar Macarius is still kind of cool.
Apart from his massive hands.
Massive hands. But there's a lot of people, I say, kind of militia armies that would eat these up. Absolutely eat them up, even if they're in metal. As I say, the Tech Priest Engine Seers were tempting, just because they're quite cool models.
There's certain things, if they brought out, I know I would buy in a heartbeat.
Yeah, like what? Give me an example.
Okay, so there's a Wolf Scout Sergeant that's got a sort of a side slung bolter, and he's sort of shouting and holding up a power sword.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that model.
Yeah.
And I had one many, many years ago, and I used it for a conversion. And I even said to my local GW manager, if that comes out, I'm buying that in a heartbeat. Because I love that model to bits.
I think we've all got a model like that. I think that all of us who've been in the hobby longer than, once you're in the hobby a number of years, you have a model that at least that will stick out to you. Could you imagine if they did this with, say, something that they weren't necessarily going to create rules for, like some squats, or picking out some of the Necromunda stuff just for individual models? Things like that, Mordheim.
Beautifully with these specialist games as well, couldn't they?
Yeah, and it kind of gives them an idea of what people want as well. Because, as we've said before, there's a very big difference between what people say they want and what people actually want. And if you've got X number of sales behind something, that's a very good indicator that they'd buy more of that kind of thing. We've seen that in a different story. So it'll be really interesting to see if they do more and what they do and how this goes on. Because
I think for me, it's probably some of the models that I never got to own properly as well when I was younger.
Oh yeah.
There'll be some on there that I'll go, if they've released, like some of the old Grey Knight models, the really, really, really old ones from the early 90s and things. I think I'd buy some of them as well.
Well, there's a big opportunity, I say, not for whole lines, but as you say, for certain classic models. Trying to think of the old kind of, you pick out a specific special character from Necromunda, a special character from the game. Say that they've got Lord Solar Macarius here, or like old Games Day only models.
Yeah.
Like to re-bring out. I've got the old Chaos Warrior that's holding an elf by the throat and like choking him in the air. It's a little bit of a Darth Vader homage, and it's fantastic. And if they brought that out now, people would buy it. Just people.
What about
would
the
buy it.
Legion of the Damned Cassius model?
Yep, people would be all over that.
That model is still spot on to this day.
As we say, there are models out there who do stand the test of time, or people want just something different for their, a different version of something for their commander or whatever. There's a lot of potential in this. As I say, the big problem for me is their metal.
Yeah, that is amazing. I mean, we've moved on such a long way now, haven't we?
We have, and it's not so bad with some of these Imperial Guard troops and whatever, where they've got fairly clean lines, and Space Marines where it's all, you've got a mould line down a shoulder pad, that's okay. If you start moving into the Warhammer, Age of Sigmar line where, you bring back the furs with let's say, mould line running down the fur across the hair, that's a whole different story. And kids today would be unprepared. Kids who've never used metal, or not a lot of it, would be unprepared for some of the work that would have to go into that. But there's potential there, real potential, which would be very cool. And yeah, If you're playing a militia, main reason to bring it up is if you're playing a militia army, I'd be on the lookout for some of this stuff.
Yeah, definitely, because you can really write a bit of a story then, can't you, for your militia? Yeah,
or even if just like you want to play you really have always wanted to play the Talon. And yes, the Talon Desert Raiders is a 40k force, but there were Imperial troops on Talon. So there's no reason why you couldn't use them for that. Loads of cool stuff. So much cool stuff. Groovy. In other circles, we've finally had The Great Wolf released. So Lehman Russ, the book, and there's not many of them left. So it was supposed to be released on the 22nd. As I said, they went up actually for pre-order on the Coming Soon page, and it now got a big gold last chance to buy on it. So they're running out. 2,500, is it? Again, I think they were down to. Someone sent me a message saying they're down to 300. It's pretty awesome. Can't wait to get that and read it because it's going to be amazing.
What was? I mean, I don't think we spoke about the Gilliman one. But what was your rating of the Gilliman one?
A rating, eh? Oh, they don't do these very often. Probably a 3.5 to 4 out of 5.
Okay.
It's David Annandale has his fans and his not fans. I think it's fair to say a lot of people in the Heresy judge him purely off Damnation of Pythos, which has issues, not least of which is it's one of those books that you can take out of the whole series and not miss a huge amount. Which really does affect people's views. In a book series that's got to 40 books long, and we're, probably another 15 or so away from finishing, to have a book in there that at the moment doesn't appear to do a lot, that kind of irks. Some people don't like the writing, some people do like the writing. It was a horror book, so you've got a completely different style of book in the Heresy. Some people don't like it, some people do like it. I've read a number of his stuff now with The Beast Arises and with Gilliman, and there are his writing style. I notice his sentence structure, and I'm not a student of literature or anything like that, but I'm reading his books and his Age of Sigmar books as well, and I notice that actually there's a lot of short sentences, and for me they don't flow, and it breaks me out of the reading a little bit.
Okay.
But the story is Gilliman fighting against some orcs, and it's a study of Gilliman and the tactics the Ultramarines used, or use, should I say, and how that is intertwined with his character and the character of the Legion. And I thought it was good. I didn't think it was excellent. I thought it was enjoyable. I thought it added to Gilliman, the character, which is, I think, probably the main thing these books are supposed to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it certainly wasn't. It certainly was in the top half of kind of a percentage rating. It didn't stun me. I didn't come away from it wanting to tell every single person about it, but it wasn't a bad book. Russ, it looks to be telling the story of him and Lionel Johnson as a relationship. How deep into that we'll go, I don't know. Can't wait to find out, frankly. It'll be really cool. So, yeah. Exciting times. And it's not going to be long now till the Black Library Live. So we're going to get loads more information there about other stuff coming out as well, which will be really cool. I don't even know when Lehman Russ is actually going to get to me. Hopefully.
The book or the model?
The book, the model I'll be picking up at Forge Road Store when I'm up for the campaign weekend. So by the time this comes out, I will own it, which will be awesome. And then I'll sit there kind of looking at it going, I don't want to paint it.
Well, you can always get commissioned.
No, I must paint it. It's his Lehman of the Russ. Maybe I'll buy another one and get that commissioned.
Good idea.
I might need a new job first. But there we go. Yes, and I think that is about it. Again, we're missing out on the Friday, so we'll fill that in for the next episode. Was there anything else we missed?
Not that I know of.
No, we talked quite a lot. We'll leave that there and we'll come back after the music. We're going to answer some listener questions now in lieu of our main topic. So first off, we'll be coming back to Burning of Prospero. I can't remember if I said that at the end of the last section or not, but we'll come back and we'll do it. It's fair justice in another format later on, but we put the call out and we got sent some questions. So hit me, Neil, with a question.
Okay, well, I'm going to start off with one that I thought is a simple question, but is probably the simple ones are the best. And Aspiring Champion sent me one on Instagram that just simply says, loyalist or traitors?
Loyalist, move on.
Well, I was going to say loyalist in my heart, but I love painting traitors. So I think there's something about the traitors have better colour schemes and looks, but the loyalists is where my heart is.
Interesting. I think when you come down to what the Chaos Powers are and everything else, loyalist all the way. So it's got to be. Can't be the spoilt brat who's turned just because Daddy doesn't love me anymore. So that's my view on it anyway. And I'm sure plenty of people are going, "Oh, how can you say that? How can you say that?" But tough.
I think it's funny because most people probably have. It's an interesting question, I think, because most people have a way that they particularly feel they're dear to more. I think, most people would say, oh, well, I'm a loyalist or I'm a traitor.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would say, oh, the Imperium's evil. And it's like, yeah, it's the lesser of two evils by some stretch. If the Great Crusade had achieved what it wanted to achieve, the great war machine of the Imperium wouldn't have been required. So a lot of those people who are just born into war, we talk about people who are born on spaceships who never leave spaceships because they're always fighting. That might not have happened once we get to the end point. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, you've still got the Tyranids, although, spoiler warning for like 20 seconds. If you read Pharos, maybe we wouldn't have had the Tyranids had the heresy not happened. But you've got Necrons as well, might have woken up anyway. But you certainly would have been a very different galaxy.
Indeed.
Indeedly doodly. Groovy. I think that's my answer anyway for that one. And you like painting the bad guys.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very, very strange. But there we go. I'll do one of mine. Tristan, GK Paladin on Twitter. Which is your favourite of the 6 main missions?
Yeah, I'm not too sure I have a particular favourite, and I probably have to get a book open and have a good flick through.
Study of them, yeah.
A study of them. But, I mean, I used to just randomise them a lot. It used to be like, let's roll off and see what one we play. And I think that what I do like about the main missions is they do work differently to a lot of the 40k ones, where Lords of War can be scoring and capture things as well as heavy supports and things, which made it, I think, a bit more interesting than your generic GW ones. I'm trying to think of one in particular that I played a lot of. I think, is it that sort of the style of the Hammer Blow Assault one where you've got a large deployment, like enemies versus traitors, so the traitors have got a large deployment edge and you've basically got to try and steam through it from the other side. I'm trying to remember the exact name of the mission. I don't think
that's 6 main missions. The 6 main missions are the balanced. There is no attacker defender. The ones that you can just turn up with a 2,000 point force and play someone with a 2,000 point force without having to have that conversation with them. I don't necessarily have a favourite either. I think once you've played so many games of Heresy, you've played them all enough that you kind of don't necessarily look forward to any. What I find tends to happen is, we played that mission like 3 times in the last month. Let's pick a different one. So, yeah, if you come to me at one point, I might say, well, I've played that one 4 times, so it's not my mission, not my favourite mission at the moment. So I'm a little bit, it's become stale. And you swap it around. Yeah. I would say, though, that my favourite deployment is the quartered one.
Oh, yes, okay.
Because it goes back to it just reminds me of playing 40k a lot back in the old days. We seem to play that one a lot, and I like it.
Yeah, and I think it can add something, because sometimes when you set a board up, you probably set it up a little bit generic sometimes. Then you get that quartered setup, and then suddenly there's lots of more interesting bits of terrain that you probably weren't going to get to use before.
Yeah, it creates different. It allows things to work differently. So anytime you've got a diagonal edge, things like conversion beamers potentially have more opportunity to do things.
That's true.
I mean, that is very much potentially, because you can still stick it in a corner and hope the other person goes in the other corner. But it feels like that. It's it's almost just the way your brain works. But the ability to flank in that deployment, particularly, so if you've got fast things like the Cryos, the Venator. It moves 12 and it's lethal in the flanks of Spartans and everything. And in that, you've got slightly more opportunity to get around the flanks. Whereas the traditional long table edge, flank shots, if the enemy doesn't want you to have them, it's easier to stop that.
Yeah, that's true. And if you're randomising that sort of setup as well, it means that, you could look at a board of terrain and think, well, I'm going to be quite comfortable on this side and control. But then suddenly if you've got to change up the deployment, then it's going to throw that all out of sync. Yeah, and,
Hammer and Anvil, that's the long one. If you've got someone who can outrange you and just sit back, it can be a bit tiresome. But, it depends on the armies you're using as well, but that's the one I like. Cool.
That's true.
Hit me.
Right, okay. The next question is a painting question, because I did get a lot of those, but it's going to be quite a simple one, which is painting white, ? And do you have any opinions on painting white, Greg?
Yeah, don't do it.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing.
I start at black and work up through the greys. I find that works fine.
My number one tip for painting white is don't paint white. Don't ever go to pure white. Just start off with a very light grey and just highlight up some edges to white, and it looks much more realistic. When something's too bright white, it looks really off.
Yes, I mean, it depends what you're going for. You're looking at winning painting competitions, I assume.
Try to.
Yeah, so you're looking for different things. Every now and then someone wants to paint the old school. Like, I quite like my armies where they're bold colours and their blocks of colour, and there's maybe a sharp edge highlight. And in that case, I wouldn't necessarily mind a white, but it's a very different look than what you're going to go for with your white. And I think, to be fair, most people in the Heresy, and I would say for most people, don't paint white. But actually, GW do some good off-whites, and then, of course, Privateer Press and Vallejo do some pretty good whites as well.
Yeah, and thinning them down, I find whites go very chalky. very quickly. So it's very good to thin them down if possible.
And
but yeah, that's just a simple painting question just to get us.
That's right. There'll be more. I got one as well, so we'll have that later. Okay, Jamie, Shropshire Gamer on Twitter. If you wrote a Horus Heresy novel, what would it be about, and when would it be set?
Ooh.
So, first off, if I wrote a Horus Heresy novel, it would be rubbish.
Yes, same for me as well. So, it would be no one would want to read it.
Exactly.
It would be very short, very badly written, and with lots of plot holes and spelling mistakes, probably.
Yeah, and then also, we've had most of the stories covered by now. So would I want to write Prospero? No, because it's been handled very well by Dan and Graham. So no, I wouldn't want to write anything that's already been written. So they're out. I would probably say, and this is part of my contrary nature probably, for me, some of the coolest books have been things like Nemesis or Outcast Dead, where we've looked not at the main fighting line, we've looked at what's happening in the rest of the Imperium.
Yes. And yeah, so, I was going to say, actually, some of the human interest pieces I find more interesting.
Yeah, so
like big space marines battering each other and shooting bolters at each other, I find it can be a bit tiresome, but it's the human elements that sort of make them interesting.
Yeah, so if I was writing something, it would probably almost be like fan fiction, but without the connotations that fan fiction can have, i.e. 50 Shades of Grey. More, this is set in that universe, but it's actually just this planet trying to deal with what's going on in the rest of the universe, and you might have like one space marine in it. You know?
Yeah, or you can have like, a complete side story to the heresy of, what's going on this planet, and they just talk about the space marines, but you don't really get to see any in the book. Or
yeah, you can still have fighting in there. You could have that planet being fought over, but no space marines, or very few space marines. And actually, the whole plot would be, what's going on from this point of view of Nemesis handled it a little bit. So did War of Lies, the short that Jim wrote. Can't remember what it's called now. Lies Due, something like that. Where they looked at, does it even affect me? If I'm producing bullets, does it matter whether they're for the Emperor of Mankind or Horus, the War Master?
Exactly, yeah.
And I would write something like that, but I think...
And those political pieces can be quite interesting, because the sort of the 30k and 40k sort of dark sort of universes does throw up a lot of those sort of political questions, doesn't it? And that's sometimes good to explore those, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Or even actually just thinking about it, maybe a ship, a story about a ship and its journeys through the heresy. Again, a non-space marine ship. So, but yeah, I don't know. When would it be set? Probably smack bang at the height of the heresy, I think. Just pre-march on the Sol system.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
Hit me.
Right. The next one, which is something we've sort of covered a few times, but I thought as it was a question, we'd sort of go over it again. And this one was from Jack of Ziggy Moons on Instagram. And the question was basically, though, asking best place to get started with an airbrush. And I take it it's obviously, again, a bit of a painting question, but we have sort of mentioned this before with airbrushes that, sometimes just buying a middle of the road airbrush and just get practicing with it and just get it out of the box and just see what you can do. I mean, we're both probably quite new to airbrushing anyway, aren't we?
Yeah, I'm still really a novice. I talked to Byron at Element Games, and I kind of said, yeah, I'll get a cheap one, and he said, don't bother, because you'll quickly surpass the cheap one. And actually, the compressor's the expensive bit. If you want a decent compressor. Yeah. So if you don't want a compressor that needs to is constantly working and is as loud as anything else, you're going to have to spend a little bit of money. Mine has a small reservoir. It's working a lot of the time, but it's quite enough that you can talk over the top of it. And my airbrush is an Iwata Revolution. It's about £100, something like that, for an Iwata Revolution, 120, something like that. Badger do deals as well, and
yeah, mine's a Badger. Mine's a Badger Renegade something or other.
Yeah, and Byron sells the Iwata because he never has to send any back. And I'm not saying that other companies do, but he's found that this is the company that are most reliable in terms of the build quality and everything else. So I'm like, you know what? For me, as someone who I know I'm not going to get to the level where I'm, airbrushing, flipping Da Vinci's all over my models. I'm filling in block colours and then maybe progressing from there. That sounds fine to me. So I went to Element and I kind of bit the bullet and I went for one of their deals they do on their airbrushes.
So they have package deals on there where you can sort of get everything in one go.
They do, yes. So let me just they've got bundles. They've got the Workhorse, which is what I purchased at 368 quid. So it's not cheap. It's
an investment though, isn't it?
Yeah, and that is the Iwata Revolution and the Iwata compressor. They do an entry-level airbrush bundle at 161 quid, and that's a Neo, Iwata Neo with a Neo compressor, which might work fine. I've never used it. It's built for, that's the big thing. It's a small compressor, so it's only built to last for like 10-minute bursts.
Okay.
And that's because they overheat at the end of the day, and you don't want that happening. And then they also do an intermediate and a premium as well. So you've got 4 different price ranges from 161, intermediate's 225, Workhorse 368, and the premium is 479. Byron uses the Workhorse bundle. That's what he used, and that's what he wins painting competitions with. His work was his work in White Dwarf? Oh, I think it might have been. Certainly I've seen it plenty of places round online. Does some fantastic stuff. He tries out a lot of different styles. The thing I would say is you want the cleaning stuff. So,
yes, yeah, because it's not so much just the let's say the equipment, like the airbrush, the compressor. It's all the ancillary products you need to get as well, the cleaner and the thinner and make some pipettes and all that sort of stuff is probably the stuff to remember.
It doesn't matter if what airbrush you buy, if you have to keep replacing it because you screw it up, it's a pain. Worst things that happened to mine so far is I broke the thread on the nozzle.
Okay.
So I had to jam. The problem was it wouldn't come out, so I had to jam some paper clips in there, undo it. Replacement from Iwata replacement was like 10 quid, something like that. So that worked fine. But things like the pot to spray the rubbish into, the airbrush cleaner. I've got the foaming airbrush cleaner as well, which is really good. And then, even maybe brushes and other things as well.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, it's talking about the replacement of broken parts. I did something similar. I was taking mine apart to clean it, and then I thought, what's that? I touched something. It fell on the garage floor.
That's it, yeah.
And I was like, I'm never going to find that again. And, of course, then I had to order a new replacement. And, I think it was about 5 or 6 quid. And I remember thinking for such a tiny, tiny little piece. You think, oh, blimey, and you wait for it to be delivered and everything. And that can really stop you in your tracks, can't it, really, when you're thinking about, I'm going to do some tonight. I'm going to get a load done, and you then lose a small piece. You think, well, that's the next 2 weeks knackered.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nozzles are 5 to 10 or 15 quid or whatever. That's annoying enough. But when it's like the needle or something else, or another part, and you're spending more than that, 30, 40 quid, it's like it's a pain. The keeping your airbrush thoroughly washed and taking it apart every now and then, even if you don't necessarily fully take it apart every time you clean it, making sure you give it a really good clean every now and then is fundamental. And
yes, and I would say there's probably a lot of good books out there, isn't there, and online
YouTube
tutorials and things. Yeah,
YouTube is your friend for all these kind of things, and you'll find loads of people doing airbrush work, and they'll tell you how to do it and what to do. And I'm still learning bits of that as well, to be fair. Every now and then I get my airbrush out and I have to spend the first 20 minutes cleaning it because I didn't clean it properly the time before. When I didn't spend the 5 minutes cleaning it at the end properly and spend 20 minutes taking it apart and giving it a deep clean, which is a pain.
I am one for rushing the cleaning at the end. It's like a case of, right, I'm done now, I'm done, really want to pack up and go.
Excellent. Okay. Yes, I think that's airbrushes. As I say, we talked about it before as well, but that's what I'd do. And the other thing is, if you know someone who airbrushes, go to them so you can see them in person. It's always better than a video, and they might be able to tell you what they think you're doing wrong or right or whatever. And you've got to play around with it as well. You've got to fiddle with the PSI. You've got to fiddle with the mixes. Everyone will tell you a different mix for your paint, because everyone has a different style of painting and a different need for that paint as well. I mean, I use Vallejo Model Air because I know I don't really have to thin it too much.
Yeah, and I bought the Citadel Airs because I knew that I would probably be touching them up at some stage with a brush, and if they were exactly the same colour, I know I was pretty safe.
Yeah, whereas I'll just dollop the Vallejo out and do it from a brush from that. But yeah, you can. Yeah, there's lots of different ways of doing this. Cool. Right, Brian, Lucky Baldwin 221 on Twitter. I've written that name down really badly. Apologies. What's the fluff behind our armies? Is the first part of his question.
Oh, right. Now, which army are you going to refer to?
Well, my Mechanicum, there really is none. I bought the models I thought were cool, and then I made an army around it. The Wolves, he goes on to ask me why a quartered colour scheme. So that, again, is I do have a love for maybe not being standard, being a bit of a rebel in the only way I can. So constantly seeing people say Imperial Fists are yellow, White Scars are white, and kind of that stubborn refusal to do anything else, which goes beyond... Like, there's the people who are historically accurate in our future history game. They're fine. The people who go beyond that to no, can't do anything else. As I don't know, it's become its own thing. It's not even because that's the way they think it should be done. You know, it's strange. Part of me just wants to get on their back, and I'm like,
are you saying you doing it just to be difficult?
Well, it's. I see people come into the hobby every now and then. You'll see someone come in, I want to do this, and people say no. I want to use Mark 7. Can I use Mark 7? And people say no, and I'm like, well, you can actually, and you can have a non-standard colour scheme, and you can have this, and you can have that. If you go about it the right way, even those people won't really comment when it's on the table. So what I looked at is, right, okay, what can I do that's different? Do I just want to paint grey Space Wolves anyway? And played around with a few little different ideas. The other thing was for some reason I kept seeing quartered colour schemes. My guy at the club was bringing his Howling Griffins in, and I actually think Howling Griffins is one of the best chapter colour schemes there is. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And part of me, I grew this kind of, I want to do a quarter colour scheme. How am I going to do a quarter colour scheme? Stuff it. Let's just do it from a Wolves. So that's how I did it. Frankly. Fluff is probably that they weren't at Prospero. Haven't decided yet. But I was going to go with they weren't at Prospero. They were out doing other things. And I'm probably going to attach the Mechanicum to them and the Night House as well. But I haven't fully formulated that. But then the army's not finished, so...
That's true. These things are always a work in progress, aren't they? Yeah. With myself, as obviously I've got my two armies, but my one that's really only I can really talk about being complete were my Iron Hands, and they were built purely around Ferrus Manus. And then I wanted to go for very much an Isfahan style army, and hence why at the time of making the list, when you could have just lots of Terminators and not have to worry, I just took like all Terminators and then tons of Dreadnoughts and vehicles.
So yeah, by taking Ferrus, you were pretty limited to one battle in the Heresy anyway.
Exactly, yeah. So I very much built it around that. It had a few incarnations, but that was my list. I mean, at the time, I remember wanting to do, and I forget the name of the clan name, the ones that went down with Ferrus, with all the Terminators in. I cannot remember the name of the clan. And is it Aventi clan or something like that?
I can never remember which one's which.
I wanted to do those, but then they had the Skull and Cog emblem, and they didn't do a transfer for that. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, well, I'll just use these transfers then instead. So it had these intentions of being all very historically accurate, but when I didn't have the transfers available, that just went out the window.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. That's about it. I think I will have mine might be reviewed when the Custodians and the Sisters of Silence are fully formed.
Yes, indeed.
But we'll
Why
see.
wouldn't you?
We shall see. But being a loyalist, I can have all that. Nah.
Yes, indeed. Right. Well, the next question I got, which I thought was quite a good question, was I collect fists, but I've always loved the sixth. Will probably be my next army. Should I buy Russ as my first Primarch?
Yes, and repaint all your fists.
Yeah.
No.
My view of that was if you're going to start a Legion and you're thinking, oh, do you know, I quite fancy doing Space Wolves, buying the Primarch it's got to be the best starting point.
I wouldn't necessarily say best starting point. It depends what you want. But if you're going to want a Primarch for your Legion, yeah. At the end of the day, I don't think there's a Primarch I wouldn't buy if I had the time and the money.
Yeah, and I think if I was doing any Legion, I'd always want to paint or buy the Primarch for that Legion.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't going to be a major game piece, or I might only use it once in a blue moon, I think I'd still want it.
Yeah, it's a case of if you say, if you're going to get your Primarch for the Legions, then why not go and get Russ?
Exactly.
It's a fantastic model. I think it's absolutely stunning model.
I know it's very much it's the new Primarch, so it's all very exciting. But I do think it's probably one of the best so far, sculpt wise.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that's a major. I think it's well known that Wolves players can be quite rabid in their support of the Space Wolves. But I think when Guilliman came out, the comments were there straight away. And in fact, there's some people who are critical of this model, but that's much smaller than when Rabute came out, and Fulgrim, and maybe Lorgar a little bit as well. And Russ has definitely got a higher percentage of approval. And I just every time I see a picture of him, I think he's stunning, especially when he's painted in the right colour armour.
Exactly. What, green?
Yeah, green. It appears that was just a painting error at Forge World. Did
anyone mention that then in Forge World?
Laurie posted about it on a forum, basically saying, well, let me be diplomatic. I won't bring some stuff up, but he said basically it's a painter error, and it should have been monitored a little bit earlier. You shouldn't have your Primarch in the wrong colours. Yeah, he should be. Do you think that's
a painter maybe taking a bit of artistic license? Thought, I'll mix some of that colour into that'll look really nice. No.
From my reading between the lines, it looks like we talked about Forge World having a lot of new staff recently, and Dimitri, who used to be main painter's gone home. He's no longer part of the company, so this is a new guy, and I think maybe just got it wrong. I suppose maybe looked a little bit at what he wanted to paint, but there should have been at some point there should have been, these are his colours, or this is what you paint, or he should have looked and asked because at the end of the day, these artists are, they're Games Workshop artists, and they have to do what Games Workshop want. They're contracted to that, so they're providing a service.
They've sold their soul.
Yeah, exactly. So they have to do what they're asked to do. And he should be, at some point, going, what colour should this bloke's armour be? Is it a major issue? At the end of the day, no. I mean, it still looks fantastic. There's no quibbles about the quality of the paintwork. Absolutely none. Just that almost sea green colour armour. But there we go. Maybe it's a funny atmosphere, and the lights tinted it.
Maybe.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
That's the company line.
But yeah, at the end of the day, if you're going to collect the sixth, get Russ. Simple as that.
Yes, I totally agree.
You're going to want him. Beautiful. Right. Jonathan Chester on Twitter. Jonathan Chesty 1, I think. Missed the R off. Replaced it with a 1. Which Primarch is the best, the worst, best and worst developed in the series, and for consistency as well. So
we're talking about background and all that
yeah,
jazz.
that's how I take it. It's a hard one to answer. Consistency is a particularly hard one because many of these characters actually change. So I do think, and I'm not saying that Jonathan does this, but I think there are certain people who are like, oh, this character's not the same in this book as he is in this book. It's like, well duh. 3 years have passed and he's been flipping hanging out with demons. You know?
Yeah.
He's not the same person he was. Russ is a prime example. The first time we see Russ, really, at Nikea, he is so sure of himself. You know, in Prospero Burns, all that time, he is absolutely sure of himself. But that surety gets eaten away by the events that are going on and by what he does. And so when we get to Wolf King and that, we get a very different character. And then when he's with the Sigillite and when he, in Path to Heaven, we see another Russ where he's gone through that. So, yeah, he should be different, if you know what I mean.
Yes. Yeah.
As to best worst, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. It's things like, because people, I think people often kind of misconstrue what I say when I say that Dawn's a bit of a douche. Feels best worst developed. So yeah, like Dawn is a douche. Yeah, is an absolute douche. He's second only to the Lion as douchery. However, he has to be a douche. That is his
path.
That is his role. His role is to be the bloke who does what he's told. You know, and not only that, but actually, it's explained really well in Praetorian of Dawn. He's the one who sticks to the ideals. He doesn't want to lower himself to dealing with kind of the traitors in the way that the traitors deal with him. He's like, no, we're better than that. And that is his problem. He won't bend. He will not move a muscle, which means that he's quite liable to snap. So yeah, something like that. Some people will say the Lion's character changes a little bit through. Maybe. Again, he's got issues, shall we say. Very big issues.
Yeah, I would say probably not fully up to date with every single book, but I would say that I probably know the least about Dawn. But
yeah, I think overall I'd actually be tempted to say that Russ is one of the best developed. I think partly because Chris has handled a lot of it in that journey, which is always going to help when one writer's kind of writing the character in different ways. But, you know, Graham's done a bit as well, and Dan, obviously, at the start. And we have seen a very big change, kind of, maybe not outwardly, but, you know, he's gone through a lot. I felt that Horace was maybe rushed. We've talked about that before. Book 3, his reasons for taking up the heresy, maybe a little bit rushed, but I don't necessarily think that's bad. I think that's just how it had to be. Kurz is one, I suppose, people look at. Is he just mad? Is he a bit too Joker?
Yeah, a bit too cartoon character.
Is Vulcan a bit too two-dimensional? Maybe you can make that argument. I find it really hard to pick one. Ferrus we didn't see a lot of, and I'm not a massive fan of the way the Iron Hands are written. And we don't get to see a huge amount of Ferrus, even when they kind of try and bring him in.
Yeah.
So maybe Ferrus. Just Ferrus is portrayed as this great mind who just couldn't control his anger, which might be fair, but seems a little bit harsh when we get to look a little bit deeper into all the others' flaws, and we never really got to see the greatness of Ferrus.
Yes, yeah, it was very much he was at the start. He was being killed off.
Yeah, he had his one little campaign where he helped out the Emperor's children. That was about it. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe we've answered that one. Maybe we haven't.
Okay, well, I've got another question here from Danger Mouse 425, and it says, "Talk about Volkite weapons, please. I'm curious as to how best to use them. Support with chargers heavy with culverins." My best use of them is on a tank.
when you get tanks with Volkite, it's amazing. The 10-man squad can do a job. There's no doubt about that. The 10-man heavy squad can pump out so much fire. And if you've got a Primarch that needs taking down, you're going to be doing lots of hits and lots of wounds.
I must admit, I've got them into my Night Lords list. I've got chargers with the Terror squads. And when I looked at them, I thought I like the upgrade because you've got an Assault 2 weapon, so it's giving you flexibility. And you've got that added point of strength, so it's strength 5 rather than a bolt gun, which is strength 4. And I just felt that they are really useful. It's one of those weapons that I think people may not see coming. Oh, I've got charges on those guys. Oh, okay. And then they rail off a load of shots and they go, oh, that was quite good lot of shooting. So, one of those ones that maybe people don't realise how dangerous it could be.
Yeah, my only issue with doing that with an assault unit is you then have to charge the unit you're shooting at. So if you're medium deadliness, like if your pistols kill everything, it doesn't matter. If they kill 1 or 2, the chances are it won't matter. If they kill 3 or 4 of the enemy, then all of a sudden you might not be charging anymore. Yes,
but I like the fact that,
it's great. It's great for turns in which you can't charge.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was thinking also the strength 5. If you were, because my guys are obviously in drop pods. They come down. If you're a dreadnought or something awkward, that strength 5. If you're going to shoot a vehicle in the rear and it's rear armor 10, suddenly you think, I could take that out. I thought it gave much more versatility to my Terror squads.
I think the thing that would decide it for me is who's picking a 10-man squad in their heavy support option.
Yeah.
It's such a packed option where you've got huge tanks, you've got Spartans, you've got, you name it, they're all in there.
Yes.
So how often...
Everyone's always struggling about what heavy support they're going to take, isn't it? It's almost like what Lord of War do you take, and then second off choice is, well, what heavies am I going to take in this list?
Yeah, most armies is like, I've got 3 heavy slots, I'm going to fill them up first.
Yes.
So the 10-man squad, if you're taking that 10-man squad, the major issue with Volkite I have is it kills troops. Everything in the Heresy kills troops. I've said this a number of times, but I really feel that killing troops is not hard. Like every army I make can kill troops.
Yes.
What I have a problem with is a lot of the armour or jet bikes or elite troops maybe. So, yeah, in the heavy support options I'm usually looking for the bigger weapons. So if I'm going to go for a 10-man squad, maybe it's las cannons. Or something else,
You're always looking for that tank killing option, are you?
Yeah, because your basic troops are never going to do it, without melt bombs. So
that's true.
Yeah, that's my view on it. So I'd probably end up with the smaller versions just for your heavy sports to take something else. But yeah.
Okay.
Groovy. Okay, we'll crack on. Sandy, Sandals _AJW, so I know Sandy from the Warhammer circuit. What would you want the next board set to be based around? I was thinking about this, actually, the other day. Have you got any ideas at all, or do you want me to crack on?
You go first, and I'll think.
Right, when I was thinking about what would they do, rather than what can they do. And it's going to be 40k available as well.
Yeah.
Which actually, to be fair, is now opened up completely with the Adeptus Mechanicus options that they have. But we'll look at the big battles. Cygnus.
That's what my mind first went to.
And that is the first one. Talon was all in tanks, so I don't think we'll get a Talon. We've had Moloch, but Moloch was a big sprawling battle. So we've done Calth. Isfan's been kind of done again, huge battle. I think Cygnus is the obvious one. Phal, there's been lots of rumours about having a box game on Phal. That would work well because you're in the ships, so the board layout works pretty well for that.
Yeah,
and then you can have boarding troops and all that jazz. But I think Cygnus offers the opportunity to maybe do something slightly different with the demons.
Yes, that's true, because you've got to look at both sides, haven't you, of how you're going to structure the box, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we've had the equivalent of, we've had 30 Marines, 5 Terminators, We had the Dreadnought in one, but we got the 5 Custodies, we had the Sisters in that one, and mixing it up and different bits. It's going to be, whatever box comes out, it's going to be roughly the similar kind of size to that. And I think you could do pretty well with 10 Marines, something else that's special with character, and then the support troops, and then on the other side, some Bloodletters, some new demons, maybe, and some heralds and things like that. There's potential for that. That would provide the most, probably, scope in the game as well. Because when I'm thinking, my first thoughts were, well, what would they want to try and make in plastic? Because what part of the Forge World models would they think, oh, okay, we should maybe make those in plastic because they'll be popular? And I immediately thought of boarding Marines or maybe assault squads or something like that. So yeah, I can see that Cygnus would probably work. Yeah, I think they might do Foul before they do Cygnus, but I would like to see Cygnus. Just as long as they do something cool with the demon side of it. Yes, totally agree. That's okay. If it's just all normal demons, then don't bother. Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, demon players are going to appeal to the demon players. It's got to be something a bit special on the demon side. Yeah, hasn't it? They're going to have to do some really cool new models. Also, thinking about it, if it's a year, would they want to tie it into a release? So, assume it's a year away because we had a year's gap between these two. Yeah. The kind of rumour mill was we're going to get the second part of the 500 Worlds out next year, so maybe a game set on Armatura in the midst of the city as it's being fought over. Mm-hmm. That there's potential for that. Whether they would go back to, mind you, that would have World Eaters in it, but Ultramarines and Word Bearers again, maybe not. But who knows? I'm sure they've got it all worked out because at the end of the day, these things are worked on a year and a half, 2 years in advance. So. Yeah, there's probably some people that could possibly listen to this that are probably sitting there going, nope, you're completely wrong. Yeah, I can imagine one right now with a little cheesy grin on his face going, nope. But there we go. He'll never tell us, so it's fine. Cool. Okay, so the next question I got, which was from Jamie, was, well, he sent through 2 questions. So I'll put them both in. He put, who's your favourite character from the Horus Heresy novels and why? And which is your favourite Primarch / character you have painted so far? Ooh. Right, go ahead. You answer first. Okay, well, obviously I'm a big fan of the Primarchs. And I do love painting Primarchs, but I would say, I always say this, but it's usually the Primarch I'm painting at the time. So at the moment, I'm in love with Perturabo. But as soon as I've finished him, I don't think I ever want to paint another Perturabo ever again. So, for me at the moment, it's definitely Perturabo is my favourite Primarch that I've painted. I think because your style changes as you paint, and that for me has been great doing the non-metallics on. But my favourite character in a Horus Heresy novel, and why, I quite like John Grammaticus, because obviously he's cropped up a couple of times, and I quite like his backstory. I quite like how he's portrayed in the novels. And although saying that, listening to the audiobooks, I don't like the way his voice in, I'm trying to remember the last book, the last one I was listening to, which was Vulcan. Is it Vulcan Lives that he's in? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. The accent that the guy reading the book was doing really grated on me. He had this really bizarre accent that I know he was doing it because they were saying that his accent was hard to place. Right. Yeah. But it was so bizarre, and the voice he put on, it was quite difficult to listen to. Fair enough. Yeah. It's always going to be a problem with audios. Always. Yeah. But that's a different subject, shall we say? Yes, I mean, for you, obviously you're really into the book, so what would you say your favourite character is? Well, I'll start with painting, because I haven't actually painted a huge amount of Heresy overall, really. You haven't painted any Primarchs, have you? No, I haven't painted a Primarch. So the character would probably be my Magus on his disc, floating disc.
Yes.
Which wasn't necessarily fun to paint, but it was fun to finish. Quite chuffed with the way it looks as well. So, yeah, I would say him. I've got to turn the brush to a few of the other characters. I'm a bit daunted by some of them still. In terms of the books, that's really hard. So, look, I'll put some names out. Argyle Tal.
Yes.
Everyone's favourite anti-hero. Khan the Betrayer, desperately trying to hold his whole legion together in the face of everything that's going on. Garrow, just for being totally kind of ace. We've had Yusugai, the storm caller for the not storm caller, the storm
Seer,
that's the word. Storm Seer from the White Scars. I mean, there's a guy who knows what's going on, and he's like admonishing the Thousand Sons for like, you don't get it, you don't get what you're doing, and the Thousand Sons are sitting there so high and mighty, and he's like, no, we understand. That's why we still do it. It's because we know when too far is, which is awesome. I had Bear's cool.
Oh, Bjorn, good old Bear.
Bjorn's cool, and his story's growing as well. I can't remember her name now. I could never pronounce her name. The Sisters of Silence woman. I can't remember her name. It's gone out the top of my head. It's the problem with doing these things on the fly. Is you can't.
You're getting honest responses, and that is we can't remember.
Kel. Her name's Kel, isn't it? It's gone out of my head. Kel. She reappears in the Garrow arc, and she's fantastic. You've got the female leader of the World Eaters ship that Aaron made.
She's,
the one who tells the World Eaters when they're stepping out of line. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, it's my ship. Back down. And the priest in The Last Church, who knows who the Emperor is by like halfway through that conversation, is still just like, no, I'm not being bullied. It's just not happening. And that's off the top of my head. There's 5 or 6 there. We're 40 books into this series.
There are some great characters.
People will say the Raven Guard guy. Some people say he's a Mary Sue. Oh, what's his name? God, my mind's absolutely gone. The one who's just awesome in Vengeful Spirit, and
I can't
Vengeful
even think.
Spirit in Thingy. Yeah, mine's gone. There's too much. Too much. I'm trying to think of too much stuff basically, and my mind's going. Sharakin. He's So a lot of people love him, and I would say I'm a big fan of his as well. Dantiok. It's just him and Dantiok and Pollux' scenes in Pharos alone, after everything that Dantiok's done. So how can you pick one character out of 40 books? I think it's really quite hard to do. Argyle Tal will be up there, especially considering what happens to him. And there's too many. There's too many to choose from. So I'm not answering that one tough.
You just gave lots of answers.
I did. Lots of answers. Groovy. Heretic 30k on Twitter. Which 6 Black Library Horus Heresy books are essential reads?
Oh.
Right. This is a question you can't answer. I'm absolutely sure of it. I think you have to read the trilogy at the start. What I'm thinking about by essential reads is I don't know anything about the heresy. So what's essential to read? Okay, well, you have to know how Horus fell. So you have to read books 1, 2, and 3.
Yes,
simple.
I would agree with that.
You have to then understand about the betrayal of Istvan 5. So whether you do that via Fulgrim or maybe Outcast Dead, but then the rest of Outcast Dead is not necessarily essential reading. So maybe it has to be Fulgrim. Maybe you find out about that through one of the Vulcan books, but then are they essential reading? But then you've got too many major things. Like you've got what happens to the Ultramarines. So you've got Calth, Prospero, and Cygnus, which are major kind of things. Because otherwise later on you'll get, where have those come from? Where have those come from? You've got Moloch for what happens to Horus.
Yep.
You've got books that are yet to come as well. I mean, I could see Master of Mankind making its way into that book. We've got to do the Battle for Terra. You've got, where do you stop, basically?
I think the key thing is, you're probably right, that you probably want to read, if you have to only read 6 books, you probably want to read those first few books, and then maybe a couple of extra slightly further on, because they all start to refer back, and some of them are their own contained stories, aren't they? But I think you need that grounding to start with. Yeah,
once you start the Imperium Secundus arc, particularly, then I feel you have to read the books in order, with the odd exception. But they all tie into each other so much that it becomes this huge story. You could say you have to read an Imperium Secundus book, because it has, 3 legions, 4 legions in it minimum, to find out what's going on there. Without the Calth books, without finding out, the word bearers setting up the Ruin Storm, no book really kind of covers what's going on there that well. Without Mechanicum, you're wondering why Mars isn't doing anything. It's
amazing how many good books there are, and then when you try and whittle it down, it's very, very difficult.
And it's not even just good books; it's information that's kind of almost required. So it would be the first 3, and I've always said for people, read the first 5, because the first 5 set up the story. So is Flight of the Eisenstein the absolute must read? Well, maybe, because there are elements of that which, are kind of are handled later on. But, I always tell people, read the first 5, and from there you might want to cherry pick what you read, but those first 5 provide that solid base for the rest of the series.
Yes, but completely.
There we go. Go for it.
Okay. So this one is something we've sort of spoken about a bit before, but this is from Mengale Miniatures, and he says, what do you guys think of the Demon Primarchs GW are releasing? Will they be used in Horus Heresy?
I don't know, will they?
Well, we discussed about Magnus, didn't we? And both said, you said, it's a 40k model, it's not a 30k model. I think if they did the others, and you did get, snaky Fulgrim, then you could argue that yes, he could be used in Horus Heresy, but I don't know how far they're going to go with this. So it's a little bit hard to say.
I think even if Forge World did a Magnus model, Magnus Ascendant, then people would still use the plastic demon one anyway. Certain people. So is it going to be used in Heresy? Probably at some point. Exactly how that's going to go about, I don't know. As we've mentioned with Araman, just because he's in plastic, does that mean he won't be in resin? Don't know, frankly. I would hope they do a version in resin that's different. My hope for Magnus would be that down the line Forge World also do a Magnus. I don't know. At the moment, it's not a Heresy model. I'm not that worried. I still want to see it. I still think it's got potential to be a fantastic model. Absolutely do. Again, maybe this is not the best question to ask me, because I'm very much trying to grow this kind of, it doesn't matter to me. So, it doesn't matter to the Heresy at the moment. So what's the use in spending time worrying about it? It's just stuff getting in the way then. But yeah, there's lots of things that can potentially happen down the line, and you never know what may change. Decisions change in the space of a few months that can affect 3 years down the line. So
yes, and I hope they do more of the Demon Primarchs.
Forge World I think Forge World are a fair way away from doing it as well. When you think
exactly. I think if GW can do certain things that are obviously very 40k related, and they can do them sooner, then if it means that we're going to see things that possibly we could use, then I think I'm all for it. I would quite hope that they would do them. I'd like to see Forge World do them all, but it's Forge World have limited time span and resources, don't they? And how long do we want to wait before absolutely everything has been released?
Oh heavens, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got the Shadow Crusade book to do. There's got to be a Cygnus book, whatever else they put in with that. There's a Mars book they keep talking about. We're probably going to have like a Molech book when we're doing that. There's probably going to be another kind of upgrade to the Imperial forces as well going forwards. I kind of hope there's going to be a Talon book, right? Yeah, that's 6. Right? And I'm not saying they will do all of them, but that's 6 just off the top of my head, straight away.
Exactly.
And that's with hoping that the Dark Angels, the White Scars, and the Blood Angels would be Cygnus, but the Dark Angels and White Scars are included in those books somewhere, because there's no obvious place to put the White Scars until Terror, really.
Yes. Yeah.
And the Dark Angels, unless they do a Thramas crusade, Imperium Secundus isn't a battle, and going back and trying to sort your own Legion out isn't really a major issue either. And excuse that little brief cut off there. There was another call out. So I think we'd pretty much handled that question anyway. So
yes.
We'll go for you. We'll do a few more before we finish, and any left over we might have to do another time. So do another one.
Sure. I had I got a lot of painting questions on Instagram, but one of them that was I had a few people ask me was in relation to non-metallic metals, and people saying, how do you do non-metallic metals and all of these sort of things. I know it's probably not a question for you, Greg, per se, but just as an overview, I would say it's just all about blending and looking at source material, if anything. Now, I personally find that if you're doing non-metallics, it helps immensely if you either look at other people's work who've done non-metallics and you sort of see the ways in which they've highlighted a piece of armour, or even looking at some painted, when you look at old paintings when they've done, obviously had to do non-metallics as a piece of artwork, just seeing how they've shown a piece of curved armour plate and the shapes and the reflections, and then just thinking how you can translate that onto a model. So I look at a lot of reference when I'm doing non-metallics to try and make sure that all the shine points are in roughly the right place, and just keep taking a step back from it and looking at it and making sure that it all sort of looks right or wrong to the eye. You can very quickly tell if you think it's good or bad, or if there's a problem with it.
Yeah, if you're painting in non-metallic metals, then you've got some idea of what you're doing anyway.
Yes.
So you are a step there. I did see the thread on Facebook we were talking about earlier on heavier metal, and someone was putting up a piece of 3D art, kind of graphics workings. So they had a computer program in which they could have 3D models.
Yeah. And
so they were suggesting that as an idea for looking at, shining lights off or whatever. But yeah, you can just go outside almost with a piece of, find a piece of metal. There's plenty out there.
Yeah. Just look how the shape reflects the light.
Yeah, Google image search.
And different metals as well will have different, they have different types of shine.
Yeah, Google image search will show you thousands of different, whatever you need. And essentially that's what, whenever we talk to any of the artists, referencing and, looking for material like that is a major part of what they do. All the time, artists are absorbing kind of little vinaigrettes. That does that. Oh, the light's shining off that. Or the way that's overlapping that creates this colour contrast. They're doing that all the time. That's essentially a lot of what you're doing.
Yeah, it's all about reference, and I think there's no special trick to it. It's just about just observing things around you.
At the end of the day, painting is putting paint on a model in a way to achieve an effect. When you break it
3D
down,
colouring in.
Yeah. So is it harder to do non-metallic metals than do block colours? Yes. But if you started to do shading, then you're mastering that, then it's a progressive step on from that at the end of the day.
Completely.
So if you can do these things, if you can learn these things, then it is a case literally of just learning it. Now, that's different from have you got the brush control to do things or whatever. That may be not 100% learned behaviour. There might be physical limitations in that, but the principles you can learn.
Yes.
You can go.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All groovy. Right. Okay. Dave, Game Player Dave on Twitter. Any legions that don't fit the fluff, essentially, is the question. Are there any legions Forge World have done that don't really fit their fluff?
Ooh, that's quite a tricky one. Because whenever I see... Are we talking about how the model's been created? Or are we talking about...
I think it's more rules.
Rules-wise, okay.
But, I mean, it could be models. Either.
I would say that's quite a difficult question. Whenever I look at rules or a model, I pretty much, it imprints itself on me of that's how it's meant to be.
I think Forge World have done very well in identifying a primary style of look and a primary style of fighting, and have made their made the majority of the colour plates to be that primary style, and have made the rights of war particularly. Well, it's either the rules of the model and the rights of war combined. It's like 100% of the two, but it could be 50%, 50. It could be 50-50, 70-30, whichever. But I think they've done a very good job of getting those primary rights correct. Well done.
Yes.
Now,
I mean, I must admit, going on to the colour plates, sometimes I've seen the colour plates and I've thought to myself, it's quite a departure from, say, the 40k style. But then again, I really like that because then it does feel different. Like when I was looking at the Blood Angel colour plate that they brought out, and I thought, wow, it's a really different sort of red than I'd imagine, and the way they had all the patterns all over their armour. It really sort of, I like that because it makes it feel very unique from 40k.
Yeah, 10,000 years difference. The galaxy's a very different place than what it was. The Imperium's a very different place than what it was. This was the height of, well, not the height, but this was, compared to 40k, Imperium was a massive rise. They still lost a lot of technology from beforehand, but this is still a very high point compared to 40k.
That's interesting because that goes on to another question that I was asked on Instagram, and it was basically discuss the differences in technology from 30k to 40k.
Well, I mean, there's becoming less and less differences in technology. I think the latest release we're going to talk about in the close of the show highlights it, and that's the new custodian, Caleb something, I can't remember what it's called now, the hover tank, which we knew was coming. It's been a part of their fluff for a long while that they've had, anti-grav vehicles and stuff. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. But, yeah, that shows you, like, in 40k, that's just not going to happen. Right? But it might do now that there's a 30k version. They might find a relic. But everything, like, a lot of the 30k models are relics in 40k.
Yes.
So that means that they're restricted. They've got one left. 10,000 years of just constant warfare means that things are going to get lost. The big problem for the Imperium is they then lose STCs. They didn't have that much information beforehand about how these things worked, how to make them, certain ones of them. And while Mars was maybe a little bit freer back in 30k to play with stuff, every time they lose a little bit of information, dealing with that information becomes more of a religion than a science. So for 10,000 years they passed down how to turn this machine on by this ritual, over that course of that time. So by the time we get to 40k, there's no way. It's like Chinese whispers for 10,000 years, but with even less of a starting point. The
one thing I like about the 30k and 40k universe is the fact of this like lost age of greatness. And, in 30k, they were trying to get back to that greatness, and then it all went horribly wrong. And in 40k, it's just like a downward slope.
Yeah, I think the big thing is, the heresy ruined it all. So during the Great Crusade, yes, they were off fighting these things. They were recovering this technology, but they could afford to. They had no equal at that time. You know, the orcs were pretty much beaten back, and it takes them another 1,500 years post-heresy to become a threat. I mean, they're a very big threat at that point, the Beast Arises series. But when you read the Beast Arises series, it's like 1,500 years have passed, and basically we can handle the orcs. It's not a problem, and it turns out actually maybe for quite a while they've been hoarding forces, but they pushed the orcs back to that point. The Eldar are a dying race even in 30k, and frankly, if the Imperium was a force for good, you could see the Eldar putting up with them anyway.
Yep.
The Tyranids weren't around, the Necrons weren't really around, the Tau definitely weren't around. Chaos. The major threat of the Imperium is chaos, or perceived threat of the Imperium is chaos. So in all that time that they could have been working on stuff, they are constantly fighting. Even more than in 30k, it is a constant fight in 40k. There's no time. There's no time to develop. There's no time to regroup. There's no leader like the Emperor that's able to guide them to allow stuff. So every great empire on earth, take a look at the Mongols. Genghis Khan, once he died, his empire started to fall because his sons, for various reasons, couldn't work it out. No one of them could lead the empire like that. After a while, when you lose the big man at the top, an empire falls. And there are lots of reasons for that empire falling, but it helps if you've got that figurehead to maintain it. And the Emperor hasn't been able to do that for a long time. So this faction go off and do this. Well, no one's really telling them no. Because we don't want to upset them because we need them in a bit. Let's play a bit of politics. But all of a sudden that faction's disappeared, and suddenly actually is it fighting for us anymore, or is it doing its own thing? So you've got all these issues going on. And just a constant war means constant losses. Bear in mind, in the heresy, they lose, basically half of the Mechanicum forces. So that's taking away huge resources right there and then.
Yeah.
And you could say that actually some of the Chaos stuff actually does develop in 40k because they go away and play with all these demon machines and
they make their stuff better, and all the Imperial stuff gets worse.
although they too are struggling for resources. Planets get burned in the heresy. Whole planets get absorbed into the warp. There's no coming back from something like that, and it's that is the true nature of 40k is that the Imperium of Man was doomed from the moment of the heresy. And for 10,000 years it's been putting it off. And this is why I know the storyline, the setting is being expanded with this current 13th Black Crusade that's going on. If they push too far, the Imperium ends and 40k ends. It's the only way it can finish. Is they're beset by everything. So the Imperium cannot, much like the old world, people will moan that they killed the old world. Well, you wanted story progression. The only way it was going to progress was with the death of the old world. As I think Laurie pointed out, there's a reason it was called the old world from the start.
Yeah.
It was always going to be gone at some point. And that's the whole great thing about the setting. When you're playing Space Marines, you're up against it the whole time. The Imperium is up against it. They're beset on all sides. But that all feeds into this kind of technology thing.
But that's one of my things. I think it's like why I like Star Wars and things like that, because everything's a bit rusty, everything doesn't work brilliantly, and then, it's what I love about 30k and 40k is a case of we used to know loads and we used to be fantastic, but now we're not quite there anymore, and we're just trying to claw back information wherever we can. And I like that sort of setting. I don't like it all too Star Trek, clean and clinical and everything working.
Yeah, I think it's a case of we have, like, the wars we have on Earth, we see our greatest technological drives, but that's limited by a number of things within the setting that we have. The fact is that even in 30K, they didn't really know how a lot of the stuff worked beforehand. That's why these STCs are so important, the standard template constructs. They made the stuff for them, basically. And playing around with them too much, like AI was banned, as we say, playing around was seen as a heresy of its own kind. Even in certain parts of Mechanicum, you just didn't improve on stuff. It wasn't done. But then the war became so encompassing, there was no time to progress. It was just fighting for, and the biggest factor was the war on Mars. Mars civil war destroyed whole forges, sunk into a volcano. All that knowledge, like the noosphere and all that, lost. Because that war destroyed it all. So, much like you could say the same similar things about Thousand Suns, about Prospero. Trying to save that knowledge.
The image that they lost.
Yeah. So Mars was a major factor in that. Mars, the Martian civil war, was the kind of pinpoint of where they had an opportunity to kind of recover a lot of that and lost it. So yeah, I think. Anyway, cool.
Moving on.
Yeah, I've got a painting question.
Oh,
so Aaron, Fragmonkey on Twitter. Tips for Forge World clear paint. Now, I asked him to email me because it was a little bit easier with a few more words. Basically, he's having trouble getting good results painting his Thousand Suns. He uses Vallejo metal colour and then is using 3 or 4 coats of the Angron Clear, I think it's called, over the top. He's basically saying he's going through an entire pot of Angron per squad, which is not good.
That's a lot, isn't it?
I'm wondering whether it's the finish is too glossy in the Vallejo metal colour. Do you have any tips? So, have you used the clears?
No.
Right. Okay.
So probably not the best person to ask, but I mean, if he's using a whole pot.
Yeah, okay. So
that's a lot, isn't it?
So I'm painting my Stormcast in the Forge World colour scheme. And I am using, if I can find the paint, here we go. It's right on my desk. I am using Vallejo Model Metallic Air steel. So I'm spraying them with that, and then I'm spraying the red over the top. My first go of spraying the red over the top, I stopped. I messaged Miles. I went, I don't understand what's going on. It's not working. It's not going on. What's going on? I don't know what to do. And essentially, I was trying to paint the model with a clear paint, and that's not going to happen.
Right, so, yes, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, so what you have to do with these paints is you have to put very thin layers on, and this is why you're looking at 3 or 4 coats. So the first coat, Miles told me, it should look a very faint pink, but still be metallic in colour. Right. And I was like, right. And once I finally did that, and that's a very fine kind of controlling how much paint you're putting through the airbrush, then the next time you come and do exactly the same amount, it's gripping to that paint. And all of a sudden you start to see, yes, now it's turning red. 4th coat, I've got a bright, shiny red. And even 3rd coat to 4th coat, at one point I was like, do I only need 3 coats? Put it next to one I'd finished. I was like, no, I definitely need 4 coats. Put the 4th coat on. Yeah, there it is. Shiny, shiny red. But it's all about ultra thin layers on that. And that's why, one thing I don't know if Aaron's doing this, because I almost kind of did it myself, was like, why is it not going on? Put more paint on.
Yeah, that sort of, just keep going, more, yes.
Yeah, whereas, it's something that we talk about at work quite a lot, actually, at the fire station. If something's not working, stop. Because it's not going to work if you keep doing it. But it's really easy to get hooked into this, well, this should be working, so I'm going to carry on doing it. It's like, well, no, something's wrong somewhere. I've painted maybe 50, 60 Stormcast models, and I've used 1 3/4 pots, something like that. It's a lot of models, so I'm not too displeased with that kind of ratio.
Yeah.
So I would say, go right back to the start, and literally it is get the air going, move the trigger back, and you literally just want to. The first layer is almost like a glaze, because you're
like a very slight mist over the top.
Yeah, because you're seeing metal, but it's got a pink tinge to it. You're almost you are just glazing the metal. But as I say, after that you should be progressing, and that obviously you're not putting very much paint through the thing then, because also I don't know, maybe Aaron can tell us, when you put it on too much, you'll see it running. You'll see it's not sticking to the model and all that, and that's the only thing I can think that you're doing. And it's a case of very lightly spray them on, do that model, put it down, let it dry fully, then come back.
How long is the drying time on the clears, would you say?
Well, I was doing the huge batches, so I don't really know. But you need to make sure. Miles says he puts them under a light. Bit of heat. Not necessarily direct heat, but a little bit of radiated heat there. But I would say you want to leave a good few minutes, because you don't want it. Yeah, because
that's the one problem I find with an airbrush is often I'm doing a small area or a small part of a model, and I spray it, and then I want to get on to the next stage.
I think, and I think if like my black undercoat is going to set quicker than those clear paints. It feels like it does anyway. So it's something you want to play with. Again, if you've got lights there, it's going to dry quicker, but that might affect stuff. But I find them fine. I think if you're doing any small area, I don't know that I'd bother unless you were doing a piece of art on it. But for those models, say I'm doing the Stormcast, and if I can do them, I'm sure you can. It's just a case of learning that technique, practicing with it, and every now and then I came back to it and I was like, I'm doing this wrong. I'm putting too much on, and that's always kind of keep watching.
I think with an airbrush, it's about finesse, isn't it, and trying to just do small amounts.
Yeah, and I've got flipping, small, fat, flipping grr hands. Finesse is not my thing when it comes to manual dexterity with my fingers, so it's a learning curve for me, and it's very much that's the thing that taught me kind of a little bit more on how pulling that trigger back, the movements. Now, pressing it down and up, I tend to be an all on, all off kind of guy with the air, but I've got better with the paint, so that's the way I'm going to have to learn my painting style with an airbrush is like loads of air, modulate the paint more than the air. Whereas other people will be able to half press that a lot easier than I can and everything else. But I can't, so I don't. Cool.
Well covered, Greg.
Well, maybe. Find out if it works.
Yeah, it comes back and goes, no, it didn't work.
Have you got one more, and then we'll call it a day?
Yep, one moment. I'll have a little look.
Man looks stuff up on the internet.
Yes, indeed, as we always do.
If anyone gets those references, please feel free to tell me.
Right, there's a question here that I think we'll probably cover in the close, but I thought, he has asked the question. Any news on your guys running a London / Southeast based event?
No news. Wait for news. Won't be long, there will be an announcement about my next event, or the next event I'm running. But there are other people who are looking at running events in the Southeast as well. So,
yes.
So,
what's the best website or thing to go on to look for those events?
Facebook's good in terms of, you can literally just type in Horus Heresy event or tournament or what have you. And I found some cool ones around the world, when I was doing that as a research or something. I put all mine forwards through to the War Games Tournaments website. I'm trying to remember exactly what the title is now. So the computer does it for me. It's remembered it all, which is all good. Yeah, War Game Tournaments website, because Simon actually emailed me the other day. So I use that. It's a great collection. You can search through. I've mentioned it before on the site. And you can go to... I'll try and put the links again. It's wargames.cerebrus.net. And down the side, he's got country, state, city, game system, tournament type, month from. So you've got all these factors you can search by. He's got everything listed from Ninth Age, Alien vs Predator, Beyond the Gates of Antares, games I've never heard of, all the way through. And I do believe, I got him to put Horus Heresy as its own thing rather than Warhammer 40k Horus Heresy. It's Horus Heresy. So press on that. I'll press search 2 tournaments found. So I still don't think that people are necessarily putting giving him their information, which would be good to get done. But we've got the Las Vegas Open and the Shadow War, which is going on just before this comes out. So mine will go up there. As I say, it's not being fully utilised for Horus Heresy. And maybe that's the nature of local game groups playing it or whatever. I don't know. But if I was to put in there Age of Sigmar, I'm fairly sure it would look very different. So I put in Warhammer Age of Sigmar 13 tournaments straight away. Events, tournaments. All around the world as well, this is. So if you do run a 30k event, or you are going to one, maybe just there's a really easy contact form you can fill out here to add a tournament. You literally just write your contact details, the tournament name, link, and then any other details, and that's it. Boom.
It's nice when those resources are complete, because then everyone gets the chance to benefit from them, if possible.
It's well done. It's not going to set the world alight as a website, but it does everything you want it to. So who cares at the end of the day?
Yeah.
But it depends on people putting in. He does look up, I think, because he's obviously in the hobby, so he sees stuff, so he will put some stuff in himself. But obviously, it's easier if people submit their events, and I do, and I will. But yeah, as I say, in terms of a Horus Heresy event that I'm part of, you will be getting information imminently about one over here. And I've been working very hard on the pack. We didn't do it again this month because this is something that it's just all going to get, when it gets released, it's going to be done a certain way. So it's all keeping it quiet till then. And then when it gets released, you'll probably be sick of hearing about it, because we'll be trying to push it and push it and push it. So, because I'm hoping that this is going to be even bigger and better than Taka and Reba was this year. That's the plan. And it's got potential, and the event in itself around it's got potential as well. So, yeah, look forward to that.
Excellent
stuff. Right, we'll save the rest of the questions for another time, and we'll go ahead and close out the show. Okay, into the closing of the show, which is going to be slightly different this week because some news dropped. We recorded the news section early because of having a very busy week, and then all of a sudden some stuff appeared. So we're going to start with Talisman. So
yes.
Actually, this did come out a little bit beforehand, but we've talked about Talisman before, the computer game this is, the Horus Heresy Talisman, and they've done a Prospero expansion.
Yes.
So it's, there's a little bit of the theme of Prospero and everything else, characters going on in that, which sounds pretty cool.
Good to see some development there that they've.
Yeah, they're not just abandoning this game; they're going to support it, which is cool. If you're really into it, I could see maybe if I played more multiplayer kind of games or had the opportunities to do that, I might play it more. But with painting, with the podcast, with work, with other stuff, I just don't really have the time. It's something I turn on every now and then and maybe play a few turns of, but you always get into that one-turn syndrome then, which is a reason why I'm never going to buy Civilization 6.
Well, that's my big thing is always I don't play computer games, because nearly all modern computer games now, you need to devote so many hours to them. And if I've got a spare 20 minutes, I'd rather do some painting.
Fair play.
So yeah. I very quickly went, I don't do computer games.
Yeah, no, I've I mean, not having kids and stuff, I do have a little bit of time in that respect. So I tend to have one computer game going at a time, and at the moment it's XCOM 2. So if I get, every now and then I'll have an hour playing that, but I try and keep it to an hour and then put it down and walk away. Because otherwise, they just eat up your time. Something like Fallout or GTA will just eat 70 hours in a month. And it's like, where does that time go? Can't do that anymore. I'm not at college anymore. Can't do that anymore. So, but it looks good, Talisman. It is a very good looking game. It's Talisman at the end of the day. It's going to hold no major surprises. But there's nothing wrong with that. Another thing is I've got the second edition of my Hatchet subscription through for the 40k books, and they came with 6 40k tea coasters, which are kind of cheesy but kind of awesome. With some really cool.
How many did they send you through?
6 coasters.
6 coasters.
They're plastic ones, and 2 metal bookends with a stylized chaos 8-pointed star in them, which is pretty cool as well. And then the 2 books are 15 Hours and Warriors of Ultramar. I think it's the first one. They're way over the other side of the room, but that 15 Hours is I think it's one of those kind of tester books that they like. Oh, you're going to join the Black Library stable. Okay, write an Imperial Guard book like ADB did with whatever book that was called, which is really good. Can't remember it for the life of me. But it's like under a half the size of Graham's book. It's like, oh wow. So I might try and read that, because I don't think I've ever read 15 Hours, so I might try and read that and tag it on the end of the show as a little bit of a review.
I suppose in some ways that's the great thing about those Hatchet. You're getting something that you possibly wouldn't have picked up. Yeah,
that's the idea, and that's what has put some people off purchasing them, because it's like, well, I'm probably going to have read them. Well, fine, it's not for you then. At the end of the day, it's not aimed at you.
It's not aimed at the hardcore reader that's probably read nearly every piece of Black Library literature.
But as I say, my mate jumped on it before I mentioned it to him, because I didn't think he'd be interested. He's like, have you seen this thing? I've just signed up to it. I'm like, yeah, I have, yeah. But for him, it's perfect, because he's not got that basis of lore that I have from 20 plus years of playing Games Workshop. So it's cool. He can discover different things and maybe pick up series, which is the whole point of the series.
Exactly, yeah.
Excellent. And we also had something drop to be purchased for the first time at the 40k Open Day, which I'm not going to. We did have a question about it. I'm up at Warhammer World on the 29th and 30th of October. I'm up there for Black Library Live, and I'm up in Derby for a Warhammer tournament at the end of November. I'm not going up for the 40k Open Day, where there'll be a handful, if that, of heresy stuff.
And although Golden Demon's on, nothing's ready. There's no need for me to go up. Yeah. And it's a long trip if you're just going to go up and look in the cabinets. Yeah,
we're that far away that it is a day's travel. It is a whole day out. So it becomes kind of a question of, do I, particularly for me, you with the kids and the missus, and me with work, every day I'm away is hours I could be on call at the fire station, where I've got so many hours to do. So you have to make your mind up there, and just money, keep going up to Nottingham, spend 30-40 quid on fuel or whatever, and that's before you buy stuff or stay over or what have you. So I'll save that and buy toys, and I'll be glued to the internet like everyone else. But we have the custodian tank that we mentioned earlier.
Yes, the hover tank.
The hover tank, indeed. So I think we even mentioned these back in the news before, when we were talking about what are Forge World going to do for the custodies. And that's a point we'll get onto later as well. But we have this incredible tank. It's stunning. It's great. Do you know what I like about it is, for me, it has its own flavour, its own feel, which I think is difficult to do, because sometimes when you design these things, it's very easy to make things look like other things, if that makes sense. You might do it and go, oh, that looks very Space Marine-y, or that looks very Dark Elder-y, or, and I think it has a certain flavour about it, which I like. Yeah, so the Custodes had they had the best of the equipment. These guys were fully tooled out. These are not humans that are made into something else. These are fully genetically engineered beings, and they are equipped. Even from their guardian spears, all the way up their armor, they have got the best stuff. It's as simple as that. So yeah, they've got all the anti-grav tanks, and there's lots of influences that people are claiming for these. I think when you look at the two engines on the side, they do look reminiscent of the Scimitar jet bikes.
Yeah, there is definitely something in there about that. But in some ways, that's a good thing, isn't it?
I think that's a very good thing, because it links it to the 40k universe, where it would be easy to say, oh yes, this looks very much like something from Blade Runner, the Caladius. I don't know exactly how you pronounce that grav tank. I was going to say Calidus, but it's not. Caladius. It's smooth. How much of 40k stuff is smooth, but then that's because it harks back to a time before this, where we are with this level of technology.
Yeah, and also you've got to remember the Scimitar jet bike is a complete, really lost form of technology.
Yeah,
isn't it? So
yeah, I say it looks fantastic. Hopefully, we're going to get more stuff like this. Someone was, one thing I see is quite funny. Like a few traitor players going, "Oh, what do we get if you get these guys?" It's like, well, you're already going to get demons.
Yes, and probably some other nasty things as well.
Dark Mechanicum, and word bearers have already got Galvor back, and therefore so have Alpha Legion. You're doing all right at the moment. Let's face it.
Yeah, in fact, I think it addresses the balance a bit.
Yeah, I don't even know if that balance needed addressing per se, but it's nice to have an extra toys to play with. People are talking about putting the Sakaran Venator top on there.
Yeah.
No, sorry, the normal one, and using it for like White Scars as their Sakaran.
That's a great idea.
Which is an expensive but brilliant idea. I've seen a few people mention that. I think it's absolutely fantastic idea. There's so much cool about this. It's a big model as well. That's a fair chunk of resin.
Yes, definitely. Definitely, yeah.
I am loving it. But we shall see what else comes.
It shows you that there's still really loads of cool stuff in the pipeline.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we talked about there's transport options. There's Sisters of Silence transports. There's other grav tanks they can do. We know the Custodians have jet bikes, Terminator armor. There's a whole wealth of stuff. And yeah, brilliant. These are
let's wait and see what they come out with next. That's the.
Oh yeah. These are going to sell like flipping hotcakes.
Oh, definitely. I think we're going to see lots of 40k players maybe start Custodes armies.
Well, yeah, it's and some people say that in the negative, as in, oh, look, they look like they're going to be hard. 40k players are going to play them. I look at the main reason 40k players will play them is because they're an elite army. So therefore, the buy-in is picking up parts of sets from Burning of Prospero, picking up a few tanks because they look phenomenal, and how many points are you going to have left once you've done a bit of that and a bit of that?
Yeah, definitely.
It might not even be that great on the table, I don't think, because the weight of shots a Heresy army can put out. It'll be interesting to see how the Custodians stand up to that, because we got the 30k rules for them as well now.
That was a big thing as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I say the 30k rules. We have a set of 30k rules for them, which has come out in the White Dwarf, and they've adapted them from the 40k rules.
Yes, really quite a lot actually, I thought.
Yeah, and I mean, I must admit, I was talking to someone messaged me, a guy who's kind of keeping his eye on the Heresy without having, or on the hobby really, without having been in it for a while. We've got he kind of said, are they going to be like this? And I said, well, I can't see them staying with the 40k style rules. I can see them having a 3-inch squad coherency to represent the fact that they don't have to work together quite so well, which is going to help, them survive blasts, which is good. I couldn't see them keeping Eternal Warrior in 30k, in the 30k world, where Eternal Warrior is quite a rare thing.
Yes.
Their armour's pretty good. They've got plasma grenades at least. Yeah, they're not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. The big thing in this set of rules is the Guardian Spear's AP3.
Yes, with an AP2 on the charge.
Yeah, so, on the charge they're going to rip anything to shreds. There's potential for them to be held up with...
Especially with the lightning blows as well. If they charge in, they're going to really smash through stuff.
Yes, that's getting extra hits, isn't it?
Yeah, every 6 to hit generates another attack.
Yeah, which is pretty awesome. And their bolter's going to assault. I couldn't see them not being able to shoot an assault with the Guardian Spears. But there's, re-rolling Deny the Witch, which is cool.
Did their attack stat line drop as well?
I think they did, yes.
Because weren't they something like stupid, like 4 attacks or 3 attacks?
I think they lost 1 attack each.
Yeah.
But I actually think they're more... I've seen other people kind of talk about their viability, and I think they fit better, and actually I'd be more inclined to take them in the 30k format than their 40k format.
I totally agree. When I read the 40k format, I thought, they don't really have a use for me. But as soon as I read the 30k version with the, the slight little tweaks, the fact that the standard the custodian armor gives them a 5-up invuln as a base, and the shield giving a 4-up invuln but re-rollable in combat, which I thought was amazing, because that's where you're going to have them most of the time, is knee deep in enemies. So I thought that was amazing. I really did. Yeah.
So you're looking at 195 points for 3. Is that right?
Yeah, for that the Sentinel
one,
Guard
and the Custodians is 165 for 3. So they ain't cheap.
But it's quite nice though that you get them in a unit of 3 as well. So
yeah, and you can go.
I think the 40k ones were a unit of 5, weren't they? Which is
and you can go up to 6 additionals. So I'm trying to read blurry pictures. There's better pictures there. They've got no transport options at the moment. They've got no way of taking them as a legal allies force at the moment. We are getting lists. We are getting everything at the moment. It's a case of if you want to use them, just have an agreement. But we'll get some way of using them. And what's the preternatural? They get a bonus of +1 to their initiative if their weapon skill is equal to or greater than the majority weapon skill of the unit they are fighting. So they're going first.
They're going first nearly all the time, yeah.
Yeah, because they're initiative 4. So, yeah, there's plenty to like about them. As I say, people saying, how are you going to get them there? Well, you can always borrow someone else's Land Raider. It's been done before, it'll be done again. Yeah. Just buy a Spartan. Stick them in a Spartan. That's what they do with Galvorback at the end of the day. I would like to think that maybe there's a couple more alterations to come. 30k, much like we were talking about Russ. They're holding stuff back. It's more obvious with Russ. I would hope that there's a little bit to come with that. I could see as well, because it's saying up to 6 additional, that makes 9. And 9's an interesting number. And is that because actually there might be... Because we know they had sergeants. They had people in charge of the squad, as it were. There's a rank structure. They're not all the same rank. So maybe that's going to be coming in with additional war gear options. Wishful thinking, maybe. But
I mean, it's a great starter, isn't it? The rules that they put in the White Dwarf.
Yeah, it is. It's enough.
It enables everyone to go, right, I can stick these in my Heresy Force now and play some games.
It's enough to get people moaning about the fact they're going to buy another army.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Which is exactly what Games Workshop.
The one thing when I read the rules actually was I thought, oh, do you know what? I don't want to add anything to my Iron Hands, and I can't put them in my Night Lords.
Can't you?
Well, my Night Lords are going to be traitors, and you could argue that they'd be loyalists. But
this is something I've seen a number of people say. It's like, I can't add them in here, and I'm like, well, bearing in mind how expensive they are, you take out the character, the named character, in your case the Primarch.
Yep.
And you put these guys in, and have you painted your Night Lords in a way that means they can't be loyalist?
I don't think so. Well, they're not really painted yet, so no.
Well, yeah, no. But yeah, so I think a lot of people have done that though, right? They've painted the classic colour schemes. So, and even with World Eaters, yeah, they've got red gore all over them. Well, that doesn't preclude them from being loyalists.
They were like that when they were loyalists.
90% of the time, what precludes someone from being loyalist or traitor is the named characters they have.
Yes.
Occasionally, it might be the fact that they'll say, I've got Ultramarines on their bases. Well, again, that doesn't necessarily have to, but I can understand why people are like, well, I don't want to be a loyalist and have an Ultramarine. It just doesn't fit my thing. Fair enough. But if you haven't done that, and it's literally just, I've got Grey Space Wolves, I've got Yellow Imperial Guard, Imperial Fists, I've got, Seagree Sons of Horus. Well, they can be either. So yeah, why not get, for the sake of getting, if you really want them, for the sake of buying, even if it's just 10 guys, and occasionally playing as a loyalist.
I think the key thing with these guys as well is the fact that I think most people are going to end up buying a copy of the box, and then you've got them. And if you've got them, can you use them?
There's lots of people doing swaps, so they're getting extra troops or what have you from that, which is pretty cool. But yeah, there's loads of stuff you can do. I'm kind of more interested to see the Sisters of Silence. I think they're going to be amazing
next month.
Yeah, so and it's not going to be long now till we get a book at the end of the day. We're at the end of October, November, December, January, February, 4 months. That'll soon fly. Christmas in the middle. Everything else that's going on. So, yeah, it'll be groovy. Okay. I think we talked enough about that. There was one more thing that I wanted to bring up, which was quite funny, that I saw sort of appear. Now, there was, I believe this started from a first expedition post where someone started to write a little bit up about the Custodes and their history, and then we brought up about how do we pronounce the word, their name first off. So Laurie saw this in typical Laurie fashion. He wanted to help people be correct. So we have an official pronunciation guide for the Custodes as Custodes. Or exactly here. But yeah, it's Custodes. And it's been pronounced, it's changed here.
I saw that he also put one up about codex.
Yeah, so
and the multiple of codex is codices, right, and the multiple of codex is codexes.
Yeah, essentially what you've got is you've got trademark names. So, and we've mentioned before that High Gothic is not Latin. High Gothic draws relationships to Latin because that's how they wanted to make it sound cool. It's not Custodes, which is technically, I believe, the Latin pronunciation. It is Custodes, with the emphasis on the middle, on the stow, as it were. And yeah, again, Gothic does not equal Latin. And as you say, I think that was asked tongue in cheek, that question, because it's a bugbear of Laurie's. So yeah, you're looking at if you're talking about a codex with a small c, you are talking about a Latin word for a book, effectively. If you're talking about codex with a capital C, that is a trademark term for GW. So a small c becomes codices, and a large C becomes codexes. But the big thing to remember is you can look up your Latin all the time, doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be correct.
Yes.
But it's quite cool that there have been conversations before about having a 40k pronunciation guide. But,
do you think they'd ever do one, or do you think Laurie will just go on his a Twitter mission to put it out there?
Never say never. I think it might be a hard sell. Excuse me. Whether Black Library puts something out online, but then you've still got to have someone doing that. I think part of the problem has come, particularly with some of the names. Laurie was saying that some of it's come from the audiobooks and people believing that the readers of the audio books are saying things correctly, where they're maybe not as well kind of checked as the audio dramas are.
Oh, right, okay, I didn't realise that.
Because an audio drama needs more direction than an audio book.
Right,
because it's a drama. I'm not saying that books don't need it, and then the skill sets aren't there or anything like that. You know, the audio books need to be read well as well. But in an audio drama, you've got people there, and rewrites can go on and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So there is much more emphasis on getting things precise, purely because you've got more people there to check it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think he's had, maybe some issues with some of the ways people have mispronounced stuff throughout.
Is that in the books, on the audio books, or
on the audio books? Yeah, because I say, as I said before, I never realised it was Ezekiel until I heard it, because my brain turned it to Ezekiel.
Yeah, so did mine.
Because that's what I've always heard. I'd never heard anyone call it Ezekiel. Abaddon. So, not Abaddon. Abaddon. That's the way to remember it. He's not a Baddon. He's Abaddon. So, yeah. And it's Ezekiel. And there's lots of things like that we did with Meduson as well. So, yeah. And it's the nature of the beast. They don't provide ways to pronounce. Maybe in the backs of books in the future they might do. But I can see Black Library being, well, call him what you want.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, does it really bother us? No. People still say Tyranids. That one gets me. But each to their own. Just as long as you know what they're talking about, it's not really a major issue, is it?
No, exactly.
Cool. Okay. Was there anything else in the closing of the show you wanted to bring up? We covered that.
Not particularly. There were the new bases that came out or have been shown in the White Dwarf. Yeah,
we might as well talk about them. So pretty soon we're going to get the new bases. So these are character bases, so you can make your characters stand out, which look pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, they've really gone for a bit of height in them as well, haven't they?
Yeah, I think that's an easy way to do it, isn't it? And certainly, kind of don't forget to look at the Age of Sigmar ones. They can fit very easily into a 40k. In fact, I think Miles was basing his 1,000 Suns on the Shattered Dominion Age of Sigmar bases.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
And look quite cool. So yeah, don't forget that that's the opportunity to do that. They've got some more terrain coming out as well, which is pretty cool. And wound counters, D10 wound counters, or wound counters in the shape of a D10. I suspect they've got the numbers 0 to 9 on them.
Yes.
It's like, okay, so you're selling us D10s. Okay, brilliant. We'll see. We'll see how they came out. And they're even going to use one, you can use one as a tens and one as a units. And I'm like, do you need a D10 to work out the tens aspect? Even in Age of Sigmar, I think they only go up to 20 wounds.
Yeah.
But, you can count up to 99 with them, so it's all good. But yeah, all that little kind of stuff around the edges, GW are a lot better on now.
Yeah, they like to give you the full experience, don't they?
Yeah, they do now. I think they've realised that if they don't do it, someone else is going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
So why not be them at the end of the day? And there, as I say, there's some pretty cool stuff. They're also re-releasing Planetary Strike, I think, as well. So while it may not be something that Heresy players go to immediately, it's certainly something you could pop in your game every now and then. There's no reason why you couldn't do that, particularly when you're thinking about having kind of narrative, those supplements can really help a narrative game, because they're not always fair, even scenarios, but it's a different way of doing something. So you can, and if you're playing narratively, go and cherry pick rules. Really do it. In writing the latest event pack, I sit there with, I've taken photos of loads of different pages from Forge World books. I was actually considering as well, I didn't have the time to do it, to go look through all the Age of Sigmar. There are hundreds of flipping battle plans in essentially scenarios in Age of Sigmar. And many of them are not fair either. But there's loads of little sub-rules in that as well that affect certain things. It's like, just collect it all together. Because you never know, you might think, oh, that scenario with that rule, just change it a little bit. Yeah, that works together. Give it a go.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Give it a go. Oh, no, that's good, isn't it? Excellent. Right. Yeah, so we're pretty much done. So if you do have any more questions, we will collect them and answer them in another show. Best way to do it, probably Twitter.
Yeah, I like the Twitter way, yeah.
I like the Twitter way. So I'm at Child of Fang.
And I'm at Neil Paints.
And the show is at Imperial_Truth. If you have a really long question, always best to email, because it will get less lost in the kind of maelstrom that Twitter can be. So you can email Greg at theimperialtruth.com.
And Neil at theimperialtruth.com.
Brilliant. And of course, Neil's on Instagram getting amazing credit for his Patarabos non-metallic metals at the moment.
Yeah, which was very handy.
So yeah, you can follow him at Neil Paints on Instagram as well. I've started checking it more, so maybe I'll start posting some stuff up on there.
There is some good stuff on there, but I have realised that Facebook's a great resource as well, and I haven't really done Facebook, so I was quite surprised.
Become a bit more of a Facebook convert.
Yeah, I like it. I do like my Instagram, but then again, because Facebook own Instagram, I think that they probably will link quite well together.
Yeah, they do. I think they do. And yeah, you're right. There are loads of, all the heresy podcasts have got pages on there. You can see what those guys are up to. You've got a lot of heresy groups, whether it's one good thing is you get the heresy specific legion groups, so you can be on the Volca Fenricia group, or there's multiple of them. You can be on the Death Guard group and what have you, and then you're really seeing, like, you can narrow it down to just looking at that legion, which can help big time. And then things like Evia Metal, if you're into your painting, Evia Metal's brilliant, and there's a whole score of other painting ones as well. But you can see a lot of different things and get different ideas and drag from that. And I think Facebook's great for that, because it's very visual, it's very there straight away, and you can join in those groups. Awesome stuff. All right, we'll leave that there. We'll come back and we'll see you in a few weeks. You have been listening to The Imperial Truth.